Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I refuse to call it the Sorcerer's Stone. I think that's such a stupid title, the Sorcerer's Stone. Philosopher's Stone sounds much more mysterious. I don't know what the book was called. I don't give a shit what the book was called. I didn't read any of the books. I just consume movies. Okay? So, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Guys, do I need to say what this movie is about? I think everyone has seen this movie. Follows Harry Potter, the boy who lived! Harry Potter is the boy who lived. He had a traumatic past where his parents were killed at the hands of one Lord Voldemort, or, whoops, I slipped, he who should not be named. Alright, and yeah, Voldemort, and he goes to Hogwarts and becomes a wizard, and yeah, you know the fucking story of Harry Potter. Guys, everyone loves the first Harry Potter movie, okay? And people who don't like the first Harry Potter movie are lying. However, it is my job to tell you why the first Harry Potter movie works. And I've narrowed it down, okay? Reason number one is J.K. Rowling's mythology. And where I find this movie more interesting than Lord of the Rings, a lot of people love Lord of the Rings, I'm not one of them. I feel like Lord of the Rings is a bit too heavy on the world building for me. But where this movie works, whereas Lord of the Rings doesn't work for me, I know I'm like fucking making everyone like angry in the comments, but whatever. I'm not that big into Lord of the Rings movies. And why I like the Harry Potter movies more is because they take the mythology of wizards and magic and stuff like that, and stuff like a flying broom and a hat and stuff like that, and they adopt it to a high school environment. And what I like about those early Harry Potter movies is that it feels like high school. You're following the same beats as you did in high school. In Harry Potter 1 and 2, it's like when you first arrive to high school and everything feels big and grand and stuff like that. And in Harry Potter 3 and 4, it's about going through puberty and that awkward phase and girls making you feel weird and hormones and shit like that. That's what I like about the first few Harry Potter movies. It's the meshing of the mythologies. You're taking the fantasy and you're applying it to something that's extremely relatable to humans. And I feel like that's what makes this movie work, whereas a movie like Lord of the Rings, where they do world building and stuff like that, it doesn't hook me as much as those early Harry Potter movies. That's just me. A lot of people love Lord of the Rings, and I do like Lord of the Rings, okay? They're competently made movies, okay? But as far as the world building, I find the Sorting Hat such like a clever idea. I find the three-headed dog so awesome. The troll was cool. I like the fact that they're playing Quidditch and it's like a football game, but it's on broomsticks and shit like that. Quick little tangent on Quidditch, by the way. A problem I had in this, it's a nitpick, okay, it's a nitpick. It doesn't affect my overall enjoyment of the movie. But there's a troll in the bathroom in a certain part of this movie. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. And the troll is destroying everything in the bathroom, and every teacher in Hogwarts is fucking freaking out. They're like, guys, go to your rooms, lock the doors, hide under the bed, shit like that. And then in the next scene, they're playing Quidditch, okay? I think Quidditch is much more dangerous than a troll, okay? The troll was stupid, okay? He knocked himself out cold. Quidditch is a game where you're flying a broomstick and hitting people. There's a ball that will like target you and fucking try to break your fucking skull, okay? If you fall off your broomstick, you're falling from like 15 stories high, okay? And you're landing straight on your skull, you're fucking dead. Why is this school so concerned with a troll in the bathroom and not concerned with Quidditch, okay? One of the fucking players in this game, one of the Quidditch players, got fucking Zdeno Chara'd, okay? For those of you who don't know, there's this player on the Montreal Canadiens called Max Pacioretty. He got traded to Vegas now. Or he might be on another team. I don't really follow hockey anymore. But Zdeno Chara crushed Max Pacioretty to pieces in a similar fashion as fucking the players in this Quidditch game did. I'll put the two clips back to back.
where the Boston Bruins are really not that good. They're 19th in the NHL on home ice.
Catch already trying to reach for a puck. Toronto leans on him and he just takes it right in his head. A lot of force moving into a stanchion that's not moving.
So number one reason why this movie works and why Harry Potter works and why it's become such a household name is the binding of the mythologies, taking the mundane life of a human and injecting it with that fantasy element. The other thing I thought really worked in this movie, and people don't talk about it enough, this movie has the best casting, I won't say in any big blockbuster, but definitely top 3. When it comes to big blockbusters, I'm hard pressed to find a movie that has better casting than this movie. Every single character is so perfectly cast, I can't picture anyone else. Guys, can you picture anyone else playing Severus Snape? No, you can't. It's Alan Rickman. Guys, can you picture anyone else playing Hagrid? No, you can't. It's whoever the fuck plays Hagrid. I forget his name. Do you guys picture anyone else? And even like the minor characters who don't have that big a role. Even Warwick Davis as one of the teachers. It's so perfect. Like, fucking Warwick Davis, like, so remember children, swish and flick. It's so perfect. Maggie Smith as Professor McGonagall. Even, like, speaking of minor characters, even John Cleese shows up in this movie as nearly Headless Nick. And for those of you who don't know, John Cleese is one of the members of the Monty Python comedy troupe. Again, every casting, no matter how minor the role, the casting is so fucking perfect in this movie. You can't picture anyone else doing it. Like, you watch the Marvel movies, and Robert Downey Jr. aside, I can picture anyone else playing Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. I can picture many people playing Black Widow. I feel like this movie is basically what Marvel did with Robert Downey Jr. and making that role super iconic, but spread over every single character in this movie. And I fucking love Dumbledore in this movie. I think this is the best Dumbledore. Again, I haven't seen the other movies in quite a while, but in my opinion, I feel like this is the best Dumbledore, because he's commanding when he needs to be commanding. He'll do silence!
Everyone will please!
And stuff like that. But then you have these heart-touching moments where Dumbledore talks to Harry Potter, that scene where Harry Potter is looking in the mirror and sees his parents, or the ending in the hospital, in the infirmary room, sorry. I think this is our best Dumbledore, but... And I haven't seen Jude Law. I don't know who Jude Law is. I didn't see his Dumbledore. Quick note on the whole Harry Potter-thon thing. I'm not gonna review the Fantastic Beasts movies because I kind of feel like they're not really Harry Potter movies, let's be honest. Come on! J.K. Rowling was like, I'm done with this shit. Nah. Fucking Warner Bros, man. They came with a dump truck full of money and just emptied it in her driveway and said, you want more? You're not done with Harry Potter. And she's like, oh yes, I've been thinking of a prequel that took place in New York. Whenever an idea is creatively bankrupt, it just throw them in New York, okay? That's what the fucking Smurfs did. That fucking Smurfs movie where Smurfette was kind of hot. They just like took the Smurfs and threw them in New York. I digress, and I didn't say that Smurfette was hot. Who am I kidding? The other reason why this movie works is you have the classic hero journey. It's a similar story to Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and that's why those movies stand the test of time. It's your classic hero's journey. You have a guy who lives in a small town or a smaller environment. Luke Skywalker started off on Tatooine, Frodo was in the Shire, and Harry Potter lives with the Dursleys. Going back to the perfect casting of this movie, the guy who plays the uncle in this movie, I fucking love him for some reason. He's so goofy in this movie. There's like that scene where he's like burning the envelopes and he's like fucking loving every moment of it. But anyway, yeah, it's your classic hero journey. Protagonist starts off in a small town, gets introduced to this new environment. Luke Skywalker was the Jedi, Frodo was the whole story of the ring, and Harry Potter is this wizarding world. And they're introduced to this environment, and not only that, but they are the chosen one. They are fulfilling a prophecy, and it's a story that really connects with people because it's about someone who, against all odds, shows that they have the good qualities in the face of evil, and that mixed with the environment of J.K. Rowling's mythology, mixed with the perfect casting, it really makes for a very interesting and very well thought out blockbuster film. One person who doesn't get enough credit for this movie, I find, is Chris Columbus. Chris Columbus has kind of become a meme because he directed a few Adam Sandler movies. But before that, Chris Columbus made Home Alone, and it's weird. I watched both Home Alone and this first Harry Potter movie when I was a kid, around the same age, I would say. And both movies managed to really spark my creativity. When I watched Home Alone for the first time, I remember I went in my basement and I tried making all these crazy contraptions like Macaulay Culkin did in Home Alone. And same thing with this movie. This movie struck my imagination so much. And I feel like Chris Columbus really does have the heart of a child with the brain of an adult. He knows how to make good creative decisions while keeping that childlike wonder in his films, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that. That's something that's both true in this movie and in the following Harry Potter movie. I feel like there's so much awe and wonder in these movies, and Chris Columbus knows, like, look, there's gonna be some fantastical things, there's gonna be some magic, but he also put some horror in this movie. This movie is pretty scary for a kid, and I like that because it makes the stakes feel higher when you're a kid. When I was a kid, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on in the end of this movie. I didn't know who Voldemort was. I didn't know why there was a fucking guy with 2 heads and a turban. I didn't understand any of that shit. But I saw the fucking face of the guy who's like, "Get the stain!" Like, that shit terrified me. And when it terrifies you, it makes you root for your protagonist even more. And it makes you like, fuck yeah, when the protagonist wins. I feel like people don't scare their kids enough nowadays. The kids' movies nowadays, I tried watching Goosebumps. They made a Goosebumps movie with Jack Black, and I really wanted that to scare the socks out of kids, but it didn't. It wasn't a scary movie. This movie is truly terrifying, and one of the reasons why this movie is truly terrifying is because this movie really blends practical effects with CG effects, I would say, near seamlessly. Usually in these movies, if you were to make this movie in 2021, all the owls will be CG because no one wants to fucking wrangle a ton of owls, pick up after their shit and stuff like that. It's a pain in the ass to have on set, and I'm sure they like enjoy pecking at eyeballs and crazy shit like that. But they went through the effort of using real animals in this movie. Lot of, even the CG in this movie, this was early 2000s, so CG was still pretty limited, but Chris Columbus knew that and knew how to shot the CG in a way that's pretty believable. There are some scenes that didn't age well. There's a scene where Neville Longbottom is on his broomstick and getting like clobbered everywhere, and it kind of looks like the second Matrix movie where the body is clearly CG. But then there's other scenes where CG works, like the 3-headed dog is a very convincing effect. And again, mixing the practical with the CG, when the dog spits on Ron, it's real spit. It's not like some CG blob that looks fake. Even the troll in this movie still looks good by 2021 standards. And I think they might have used practical effects. I'm not sure. The close-ups looked pretty real. By the way, when I was a kid, I had a Lego set of the girls' bathroom in this movie. It came with like the troll, and they're in the girls' bathroom. And it came with Hermione and Ron and Harry Potter and the troll. That just goes to show how much of a creep I am. Even from an early age, I had a Lego set of the girls' bathroom. Whatever. Yeah, this movie is, again, just a perfect storm of everything. Perfect casting, perfect directing, J.K. Rowling's mythology, and the classic hero journey. And I feel like that's why this movie stands the test of time, and that's why there's currently a Harry Potter land in Universal. People are still there's still a huge following for this movie. That's no surprise. Like, this movie does a lot well, okay? I'm not a hipster who's gonna hate on this movie. If I have to give one criticism with the movie, actually, now that I just called myself a hipster, if I had to give one criticism, I feel like the ending is a little out of nowhere. Harry Potter defeats the Professor Quirrell guy, and he wakes up in the hospital. And that scene, I was like, wait, how the fuck did why is the stone in the guy's pocket? How did it get there? Wait, why does Harry Potter's hands shoot fire all of a sudden? And stuff like that. And then Dumbledore explains it in the infirmary the next day. And it kind of feels a little lazy. But it's probably because the book is a little more dense than the movie can be, and they had to like rush a few things, which I guess I can understand. Still left my head scratching a little bit. Yeah, that's about it. That's the only criticism I have with the movie. The ending felt a little rushed, but other than that, it's a solid blockbuster film. Guys, what do you think? Just because I have the hipster getup today, you guys thought I was gonna hate on this movie? Turns out no. Harry Potter 2. What was the second? The Chamber of Secrets. Holy hell, it's late. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I always want to call them Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, kind of like a Star Wars movie, but then when I say that, people get triggered, so I stopped doing that. Chamber of Secrets. What is this movie about? Harry Potter returns to Hogwarts, and as he's in Hogwarts, he is warned constantly by a little gnome or whatever the fuck it is that there's something dangerous going on in Hogwarts right now. Harry Potter and the crew become strangely obsessed with this thing called the Chamber of Secrets. Guys, if you saw my previous review, I reviewed the first Harry Potter and I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was a fairly enjoyable movie. Do I like Chamber of Secrets as much? It's hard for me. And the way I look at Chamber of Secrets is the same way I look at Temple of Doom. The first Indiana Jones came out, everyone loved it. It was a smash hit. It was so fantastical, it was so creative, so many iconic moments. And for the sequel, Steven Spielberg decided to go extremely darker. He decided to have child slavery and these weird scenes. I remember even when I was watching that movie as a kid, there's this scene that terrified me where Indiana Jones is hearing the screams of children as he's getting tortured and stuff like that. That weird hallucination scene. It was a much darker film and people didn't connect with it as much, though I did appreciate the fact that the movie did go darker. Kind of the same thing in this movie. This is a much darker movie, though to a less extent. When you talk about the leap from Indiana Jones 1 to 2, that's a pretty big leap, versus here is pretty darker, but I do enjoy that little element of darkness that they introduce. The first Harry Potter was pretty terrifying in its own right as a child watching it, but this one was pretty, even watching it as an adult, it's pretty mature. You have someone who's going around petrifying children and petrifying animals. The fucking cat gets petrified, and he's writing in blood on the walls that the Chamber of It's a pretty darker movie in my opinion, and that's kind of what I like about this movie. This movie goes the darker route. Unfortunately, I feel like Chris Columbus, his whimsical style doesn't really fit the darker themes as much. I wish they kind of just leaned into that darkness a bit more and really became more terrifying. It kind of finds its way in the middle, that it's not as whimsical as the first movie, but not as dark as something like Temple of Doom, which I wish it did. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Temple of Doom. I love Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. But just like I talked about the Lego set in the first Harry Potter movie, how I had the girls' bathroom Lego set, I did have a toy that was associated with this movie. It was I'm trying to remember what it was. I think I had like a toy car of the flying car. I'm gonna try to find pictures of this on the internet. And I had a Whomping Willow board game. It was like a board game with a Whomping Willow, and it was kind of like this Don't Wake Up Daddy kind of thing where you're like hoping the Whomping Willow doesn't knock shit over or some shit like that. Going back to the movie, that was a weird tangent. I do appreciate that it went for a much darker tone. And all the things I like in the first Harry Potter movie are still here. The beautiful effects, like the snake at the end of this movie, is really awesome to watch. When Harry Potter stabs the snake, we actually see blood. And when the snake gets its eyes stabbed by the fucking pigeon or the phoenix, the eyes are bloody. This is a pretty bloody movie given that it's supposed to be a children's movie. Again, this is a much darker movie. And I'm trying to figure out why it kind of didn't resonate to me as much as a Temple of Doom. And I feel like it lies in the fact that it's lacking that hero journey that the first movie had. I didn't feel as connected to these three kids as I did in the first movie. There was something about it. They didn't give the characters that much to do. Hermione is they put her aside in this movie, which I actually think is a good idea. One of my favorite Marvel movies is actually Iron Man 3. And the reason why I like Iron Man 3 is because the writers were smart enough to nerf the character. They gave him this shitty Iron Man suit and said, work with what you got now. And I feel like this movie does a similar thing where they put Hermione aside. She gets petrified during the movie, and Ron's wand doesn't work for most of the movie. And I feel like that made for some interesting scenarios. But again, I just wish these characters had more to do. I wish I felt something more for Harry Potter. The first Harry Potter had that great scene where Harry Potter is talking in the mirror and seeing his parents and stuff like that. And it's a very emotional scene. A little schmaltzy, but it's Chris Columbus. He does schmaltz. I felt myself longing for that kind of emotion in this movie too. Even the first half of this movie, I would say, feels very rushed, and you're jumping from one scene to another. You're not getting to know these characters. It just feels like a couple of set pieces where, hey, look, pixies are attacking the classroom. Look, they're gardening with these weird trolls that are screaming very loud. And that's another thing too. This movie is pretty loud. Like, there's a lot of characters that are like, I'm like, oh god. Okay, one character is enough like that. Do you need like the blue pixies and the garden gnomes and all that? I get it, but whatever. I felt like the pacing was too quick. There was this scene where Harry first discovers the petrified cat, and it's like Harry sees the cat, and then the whole class, like all of his classmates arrive, and it just felt like a very fast scene where it didn't feel natural. It just felt like very fast. That's not to say I didn't like this movie. This movie is quite enjoyable. The part where Harry Potter is writing in the book and goes to the flashback and sees a young Hagrid and stuff like that, I thought all that was pretty interesting. Chris Columbus is still present in this movie. He's not phoning it in. He still has that magical awe-like wonder. Though I feel like after this movie, they replaced him with Alfonso Cuarón, and I think that was overall for the better, because you can tell that this movie, he's like basically grasping at straws at some scenes and stuff like that. Because you watch this movie and I feel like Columbus was squeezing every drop of creativity he had in it, every last drop of it. And I feel like if he was on board for a third movie, it would have just worn thin, and he would have done maybe like a Sam Raimi and Spider-Man 3 kind of thing. So yeah, overall, a lack of character emotion in this film, a lot of plot. I do appreciate the darker theme, but I wish they just leaned into it a bit more, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Great moments in this movie, by the way. Just overall some great moments. Like the flying car, that's classic. The Whomping Willow, that's classic. Moaning Myrtle, great character. Another good casting in this movie. I talked about how the Harry Potter movies are famous for great casting. Kenneth Branagh as the teacher, the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, that's perfect casting. Like, He's so hammy in this movie, and he loves every second of it. I love Kenneth Branagh as an actor. He's a really good actor, I find. One moment I really like, by the way. I don't know why, I'm obsessed with the guy who plays, what do they call them? The Dudsley or the Dursleys or whatever they're... The uncle? I think every time he's on screen, he fucking makes me laugh. He's got like his eyes and they're like kind of looking in the different directions and shit like that. And there's that part where he was like,
You're never going back to that school. You're never gonna see those freaky friends of yours again.
Freaky friends! I liked how he said that. I know this is blasphemous. Even the character of Dobby I found was a little annoying. And it's just loud. And that's what I mean by loud characters. It's like all the characters are like way too eccentric, whereas in the first movie I felt like the characters were different personalities and they played off each other. Now when there's like a creature that's introduced, they're just loud, like the fucking elves, the pixies, the plants. It was kind of giving me a headache after a while, which I don't know, maybe it's just me becoming an old man. I remember when I used to watch SpongeBob as a kid, my dad would walk into the room and he'd be like, dude, just turn it off. This is way too loud for me. Maybe I'm just becoming that age where shit's too loud for me. Another perfect example of the darker tone in this movie would be the spiders. The fucking spider in this movie was terrifying to me as a kid. And the two kids, Ron and Harry, they wander into the forest. And the spider just says like, hey, I know you're a friend of Hagrid, but I gotta feed my kids. And they're like trying to eat Harry Potter, and you're like, holy, what the fuck, man? That's what I mean. I wish like the movie kept that darker tone more consistently throughout the movie. I feel like this movie does everything that the first movie did well, just to a slightly lesser extent. And the darker theme is the one thing that made this movie stand out from the first movie, and I wish it leaned more into that. That's my thoughts on Harry Potter 2. Less good than the first, but still a very enjoyable movie.
Can we panic now?
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, number 3. This one is usually people's favorites. Let's see if it's my favorite. I will say beforehand, I remember when I was a kid, I had the Harry Potter PC video games. Basically one day, I think it was like Christmas or someone's birthday or some event like that. My priest came and he like laid down a stack of video games and gave it to me and my brother. They were all bootleg video games. But he's from Syria, so he doesn't really know, like, bootleg video games are probably not a good thing. Especially if you're a priest, I don't think procuring a bootleg video game is really, it's theft at the end of the day, but he didn't know what he was doing. It's all good. It's a more normal thing to see in countries overseas, taking bootleg video games and bootleg movies and buying them. It's a more normal thing because copyright laws don't really translate overseas, I think is the word for it, but he meant well, and those video games sure were dank. He also threw in the Spider-Man video game, Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. A Crazy Taxi, I used that one up a lot. Yeah, so that was a fun time. But anyway, Prisoner of Azkaban was the best of those Harry Potter video games on PC. After that, it was all downhill. I thought the Goblet of Fire video game was pretty boring, and I remember me and my brother, we bought the Order of the Phoenix PC video game when it first came out, and this one wasn't a bootleg, so we paid an arm and a leg, and it was pretty boring. Yeah, those early ones, those early PC video games, those were classics. Anyway, we're not talking about the PC video games, we're talking about the movies here. So, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry Potter is completing another year at Hogwarts, while he hears rumblings of a Sirius Black, who is the Prisoner of Azkaban. Sirius Black wants Harry Potter's head on a silver platter. and a lot of stuff ensues. Poor Harry Potter, he can't enjoy 1 year as a fucking teenager. Just your ordinary year where you're in school and you experiment with drugs and hit on women and get rejected. That doesn't happen for Harry Potter, unfortunately. All what happens with Harry Potter is he gets himself tangled up in some plot. Poor old Harry, we love him for that. But is this movie good? I will say off the bat, in case you guys didn't know, previous 2 Harry Potter movies were directed by Chris Columbus, the guy who directed the Home Alone movies. So those early first 2 Harry Potter movies had a more child-friendly tone to them. This one was directed by Alfonso Cuarón. For those of you who don't know Alfonso Cuarón, he's known, his most notable film by now would be Gravity. But he's a very talented filmmaker, to say the least. He also got nominated for an Oscar for directing Roma. His best movie, in my opinion, is Children of Men. And he's a very flashy filmmaker, and the way he directs this movie reminds me a lot of some of the camera trickery you would see in the Spider-Man movies. A lot of cool camera shots going on here. There's like that part where Harry Potter and his classmates are in front of a mirror and the camera's going inside the mirror and outside the mirror, doing these really slick transitions. All that kind of stuff reminded me of something that Sam Raimi did in those Spider-Man movies, and I feel like Alfonso Cuarón really adds his touch to these films. This is a more mature film. You gotta think that the people who watched the first 2 Harry Potter movies were about my age, so I was a kid when I saw the first 2 Harry Potter movies, and by the time this movie came out, I was like in my tweens. I was like maybe 11, 12, 13, around that range. So it's normal that this series becomes progressively more adult because the audience is becoming older as well. And that's something I really respect about the Harry Potter movies. One thing I never understood would be like when they make a movie, like first one that comes to mind is Cars for some reason. But anyway, when the first Cars came out in like what, 2005, 2006. Then Cars 2 came out, it was like 2011, which already there it's like, okay, like 5 years later, you're kind of pushing it. I feel like the people who grew up with Cars are no longer into Cars. And then they did Cars 3, like another 5 years later. It's like, what, are you assuming people still watch this shit? Like, and from what I can tell, I didn't see the Cars sequels. It didn't get progressively more mature, even though the audience kind of grew up and it didn't. Some movies are like that friend who never matures and everyone around that friend matures and he just kind of like still like smokes weed and chills on the couch and like watches The Price is Right. We all have that friend. At least I do. Maybe I'm that friend. I don't even know. But anyway, I love this movie. I think this is probably the best Harry Potter movie. A lot of people would say this is the best Harry Potter movie. Now, I think this is the best Harry Potter movie in terms of like technicality, in terms of story, in terms of character. Is it my favorite Harry Potter movie? Spoiler alert, no. There's one that I think tops this one, but it's a matter of personal preference. Objectively, I think this is the best Harry Potter movie. Again, because of Alfonso Cuarón's style that is really injected in here. One thing I noticed about the first 3 Harry Potter movies that I feel like gets lost in the later ones is the color palette. When I look at the first Harry Potter movie, I think of these reds, the Gryffindor logo, and everything feels like very warm and reds and yellows and stuff like that. Then when we look at the second Harry Potter movie, things get a little more green. We think of the Chamber of Secrets. Everything kind of has a green matrixy tint to it. And then the third Harry Potter, this movie, has like a bluish feel to it, and everything feels a little cold. Whenever the Dementors come, there's like ice that forms on the windows and stuff like that. I really like that about the first 3 Harry Potter movies, and I wish that trend kind of continued as the series went on. Arguably it did, because many people think of 5, 4 and the 2, 7 movies as kind of one giant film because they all carry the same story. So in that regards, I guess the trend did continue. The one thing that definitely makes this movie the most memorable one, in my opinion, is John Williams. And I haven't mentioned John Williams in my previous reviews. Sorry if my neck is red, by the way. I just shaved my neck and I kind of did a shit job, to say the least. But one thing I like about John Williams' score here is that it does feel different from the other two movies. Guys, do I need to say it? John Williams is a legend. And the way he does the score in this one reminded me of how he did the score in the third Indiana Jones movie. Yes, the third Indiana Jones movie had the songs that we like, the ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-doo, but it also had that other soundtrack to it that felt just a little more different and felt more appropriate for the third Indiana Jones movie. That's also true for this Harry Potter movie. It has the songs we like, Hedwig's theme and stuff like that, but it also has its own flavor to it. I think of this movie, I think of the recorder, the song that plays on the little recorder, the doo, 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 doo. He does it better than me though. He even outdoes himself from the first two movies, which that alone is like an accomplishment. But this third Harry Potter movie is John Williams at his best when it comes to this franchise. Unfortunately, this would be his last movie when it comes to the Harry Potter movies. He then moved on to different things, and probably the best move for him because you don't want to stay with a franchise for too long. As you can see from John Williams' other projects, when he did the first three Star Wars movies, those were fantastic scores. Then the prequels had amazing scores as well. I don't know how controversial a thought that is, but I think they're amazing scores. And then the sequels to Star Wars, not as memorable. I can't really remember any of the songs from the Star Wars sequels. So, moral of the story, it's not healthy to stay with a franchise for too long. What I like about all of these Harry Potter movies so far is that some of these characters who are obviously assholes, they bite the dust and they don't bother explaining like, oh, it's okay, they were fine in the end, stuff like that. It kind of has like a Willy Wonka feel where when you watch the original Willy Wonka movie, the kids kind of die and then they never bring it up again. Like, yeah, that kid died. Similar thing here, the movie opens with the aunt who's the biggest dick ever, and she turns into a giant balloon and just floats away, and they don't even bother explaining what happened to her after. They're like, she was a bitch, fuck her. I don't know, I like when characters meet their fate. Another notable difference in this movie is the recasting of Dumbledore. Richard Harris was battling cancer at the time of this film's production. He really wanted to be in this movie, but the director deemed that he was too frail, and I think he passed during the production of this movie, which is quite unfortunate because I really liked Richard Harris as Dumbledore. And I feel like this new guy, I forget his name, I don't think his performance is as good at being Dumbledore. And when I talk to my friends about it, they all say, yes, but it's a more physically demanding role, so they needed this guy, and he's more like that in the books, and they try to give excuses for it. I'm just the movie buff, so I just look at the movies. I look at the first two Harry Potter movies and Dumbledore in those, and he never had to raise his voice. Now, arguably, that could be a case of him not being able to raise his voice because he was so old. But it gave a lot to Dumbledore's character. This was a man who was so respected that just him talking, he never had to raise his voice, he never had to talk over anyone. As soon as he would talk, everyone would turn to Dumbledore. It said a lot about the character of Dumbledore, and that's something that gets lost in this Harry Potter movie and the next few Harry Potter movies. I feel like the new Dumbledore plays it a little too violently. When he says silence, he's like, silence! He doesn't have as commanding a presence as the original Dumbledore had. And the heartwarming scenes don't really work out as well in this movie too, because he's such a colder Dumbledore to me. He's no longer like this kind of Santa Claus, doesn't raise his voice, very calm, very methodical person. He's kind of a more anxious personality. I don't know, maybe I'm biased because the performance has changed and I was more used to the original Dumbledore and this one's a little different. I don't know. I just rathered that very commanding presence of the original Dumbledore. Now, also a new addition to this film is the guy who plays Professor Lupin. Thuis, I can never pronounce his name. Jackie, write it down here. But he's a really underrated actor as well. He was in that movie Naked, which if you guys are planning on watching that movie, you're gonna need some subtitles, trust me. And he was also recently in I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Charlie Kaufman, and he was fantastic in that movie. I wish he got an Oscar nomination because he was truly good in that movie. Truly a haunting performance. But yeah, he's very good in this movie. Arguably my favorite defense against the dark arts teacher. When I talk about Cuarón's style, relating it to Professor Lupin, one scene where Cuarón's style really shines is that scene where we see the full moon and Lupin starts transforming into a werewolf. And that shot, I love that shot. It feels like old horror movies from like maybe the 50s where we see Lupin's eye and we just zoom into his eye and then zoom out. And that whole transformation scene was very well done. Obviously, it wasn't the werewolf transformation scene in An American Werewolf in London. Very few werewolf transformation scenes can top that one. That's the gold standard. But nonetheless, this is very good. Cuarón does like experimenting with CGI. Some of it works in this movie. Other times, it feels a little outdated. Now, for its time, this movie had great CGI. As far as watching it now, it's a little outdated. When you look at the hippogriff, I think that visual effect's a little outdated. Some of the flying scenes didn't really age all that well. And that's a problem with CGI because no matter how good you pull it off in the now, it's always going to get topped in 2 years. We're at a point right now where technology is evolving so quickly that if an effect works for right now, it's not going to work in 2 years. I was recently rewatching clips from Jon Favreau's The Jungle Book. And even then, that movie came out in 2016, and I remember it was the talk of the town. Everyone was talking about how great CG the Jungle Book remake had. And I watch it now and I'm like, it's already outdated. Same thing, I was rewatching Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and that was another one of those movies where oh my god, the CGI is fantastic. It's 10 years old now, and I would say the CG is a little hit and miss in that movie. So moral of the story is always go to practical effects because those are less likely to get outdated. If CG works now, it's probably not going to work in a few years. That's not a knock on Cuarón though, because he really does add a lot to the table here. I didn't read any of the books, but just judging on the stories themselves, I think this would probably be J.K. Rowling's best told story. Every character has a lot to do in this movie. No one feels annoying, which is a problem that arises in the later Harry Potter movies, in my opinion. Everyone feels productive. There's a lot of emotion in this movie. When Hagrid finds out that they're going to kill the hippogriff, Backbeak, that's what he calls her. When he finds out Backbeak is gonna die, that was a truly sentimental scene. It's a scene that really shows Hagrid's personality, how he attaches to these creatures and stuff like that. I also like the time travel element to this film. It's one of the few movies I think where the time travel works. Everything is beautifully, I'm telling you, beautifully and perfectly set up in this movie. They put these little hints early on in the movie, and then you watch the later half of the movie and you're like, oh, that makes sense now. And then you can rewatch the movie and everything makes sense. Such a well done, well executed story, in my opinion, which is why I think this probably is J.K. Rowling's best book. I'm just looking at the skeleton of the movie, the structure of it. Cuarón also introduces a more gothic feel to Hogwarts, I find. When you're in the town, everything's kind of crooked and almost rotting. Kind of feels like I'm watching a Tim Burton movie. And that was a style that wasn't previously in the Columbus movie. Chris Columbus, when he made the first 2 Harry Potter movies, he didn't have a lot to go off of. And so in consequence, he kind of played the visual style safe in those first 2 films. Cuarón brings his style in here and everything kind of just feels a bit more gothic. The buildings are kind of leaning on each other when they go into the town. Everything kind of feels like it's rotting and molded. A lot of clocks in this movie. The clocks are huge, adding to that gothic feel, and it also serves as a good foreshadow for what's to come with that whole time travel plot. I really like this movie, and the whole plot with the Prisoner of Azkaban. Sometimes these Harry Potter movies, when it gets towards the end and the conspiracy unfolds, I find myself a little uninterested. That's kind of what happened with the first Harry Potter movie, a little bit in the second Harry Potter movie. This one, when the conspiracy unfolds at the end and the Prisoner of Azkaban, who he really is, It really worked for me. And most of that is probably because of Gary Oldman's performance as Sirius Black. He's really good in this movie, as he always is. He's probably one of the best actors working today. Prisoner of Azkaban, many people's favorite Harry Potter movie, and I don't blame them. This is a quality film. If you haven't seen Prisoner of Azkaban, what are you doing, guys? Come on, what are you doing? And if you haven't played the Prisoner of Azkaban PC video game, I suggest you do that as well.
Expecto Patronum!
So, we're at the fourth film now. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Now, when it comes to Star Wars, it's easy to compartmentalize the films. You have the original trilogy, you have the prequel trilogy, and you have the sequel trilogy. When it comes to the Harry Potter movies, I kind of compartmentalize it into two halves. Years 1 through 4, and then 5, 6, 7. Those are like the two halves in my head. And Goblet of Fire, to me, is kind of like that transitional movie. It has a lot of the elements of the first 3 Harry Potter movies, but it's kind of the segue movie into the more darker tone, and it starts to kind of talk about the plot for the next few Harry Potter movies, because the next few Harry Potter movies are all kind of in line when it comes to the plot. Now, in my previous video, I said that Prisoner of Azkaban is technically, objectively, the best Harry Potter movie. As far as my personal taste, I think Goblet of Fire is the best one. Come on, guys. Now, that might change. I haven't seen 5, 6, 7, and 7 Part 2 yet. But when I watched these when I was younger, I thought that the fourth one was the best. And I rewatched it now and I understood why I love that movie so much. This movie follows Harry Potter as he goes to Hogwarts yet again for another year. And there's this Triwizard Tournament going on. The Triwizard Tournament is basically a series of challenges that students face. Well, guess what? Someone put Harry Potter's name as a volunteer, and now he has to perform some of these tasks in the Triwizard Tournament, putting his life on the line and putting him face to face with he who shall not be named. Right off the bat, I was unaware of the director of this movie. This is no longer Cuarón directing. Cuarón was only there for that one movie. Neither is it Chris Columbus, who directed 1 and 2. Now it's a guy by the name of Mike Newell. And you guys might be wondering, who's Mike Newell? Well, I had to look him up too, because I wasn't too familiar with his work as well. But he directed 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and he directed Donnie Brasco. I haven't seen 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and in all honesty, I know Donnie Brasco is considered a gangster classic. I was never a fan of Donnie Brasco. I thought it was too slow, and yeah, too boring. However, he really brings it to this movie. Now, the movie opens, and this movie is very differently shot, in my opinion. I talked about Cuarón having his style, and he definitely brings a different style, this director. It has a more naturalistic feel to it. There's some scenes where the camera's a little shaky, and you're all up close in front of these characters and stuff. I feel like he definitely brings a different visual style to this movie, and that's kind of something I wish the next few Harry Potters did that they didn't do. The first 4 Harry Potter movies all had distinct voices to them, even though the Chamber of Secrets was directed by the same guy as the first Harry Potter movie. But then in 5, 6, 7 Part 1 and 7 Part 2, they get all the same director, and I get it because it's one consistent through line of stories. I just wish that they had different directors along the way, just to bring their own splash of flavor to the film. Which is why I like Goblet of Fire. It's the last one of those movies where they brought in a new director and said, yo, kind of do what you want here. The reason why I really like this movie is because when I look at the first Harry Potter movie, I see that as you going into school or high school or whatever you call it in America when you're 12. Then Chamber of Secrets, it's like when you're 13. Then Prisoner of Azkaban is like the 14, and you kind of feel that. And this one is really about being a like 14, 15-year-old. It's really about being a teenager, just by the way these characters look. All the characters here, Ron, Neville Longbottom, whatever his name is, Harry Potter, they all have shaggy hair. I remember being in my teens. Being in my teens was a very awkward time in my life. It's this awkward period where hair starts sprouting out of different places. I remember when I was a teen, my nose grew quicker than my face and my head, so I had this really long hook nose and this really small head and this really scrawny body. Things kind of just grow awkwardly, and you talk to girls and your voice is squeaking, you're like, "Hi, do you want to go to the dance with me?" It's just a very awkward period, that age, and I feel like this movie captures that essence perfectly. From the beginning, where Ron's friends are making fun of Ron, saying that he has a crush on Victor Crumb. They start doing gay jokes at him, which I remember when I was in high school and people would be like, "Ha, gay!" All the way to the dance scene, the scene where there's the ballroom dance. And I feel like that's the scene that tends to lose people. Because we were watching this Harry Potter movie, and there's dragons, and there's underwater battles, and stuff like that, and all of a sudden the movie comes to a grinding halt, just to give you this ballroom dance sequence, and it's this very awkward 30 minutes that's just injected in the film. That's one of the things in this movie, you're either gonna roll with it, or it's gonna lose you completely. I, for one, rolled with it. I really liked the mix of being in high school mixed with the fantasy element of J.K. Rowling's world, and I feel like that this movie does it more so than any of the other Harry Potter movies. When they're at the dance, Harry Potter stutters on his words. People make fun of Ron for having his mother's clothes and stuff like that. It's really relatable shit. And I remember when I was in high school and shit like that would happen to me, and I watched this movie, I'm like, this is fucking hilarious. It's basically my high school years, but in a wizard world. When I was in high school, I'd go up to girls and ask them out and be like, "Wanna go out with me?" And I'd be all awkward and shit. There's that part where Harry Potter and Ron are just sitting in the ballroom as everyone else is dancing, and they're just like, "What the fuck am I doing with my life? I just want to get the fuck out of here." And I remember I was that kid. Whenever there'd be a school dance and everyone would be dancing, I would be off on the sidelines just questioning my existence, and I'm like, why am I not adequate enough for being here? That's why I find the movie relatable. There's a scene where Ron is going out with the Indian girl for the dance. He's dancing with the Indian girl, and the Indian girl just asks Ron, "Are you gonna dance with me or what?" And Ron just turns and says, "No." That right there, those two lines of dialogue represent my high school career more accurately than most movies I've seen. And this isn't even supposed to be a teen drama. This is supposed to be a fantasy film, but that's what I like. I feel like the director, Mike Newell, really does the teenage stuff to a T in this movie. It's perfect. Also in that dance scene is Hagrid. He's got a little subplot that kind of gets lost throughout the movie, which I thought was unfortunate. I would have wished that he had a scene at the end to wrap up his subplot. But he's hitting on the principal of one of the neighboring schools, and she's this tall 7-foot lady, and Hagrid's in love with her. Anyway, in that dance sequence, he's dancing with her, and my boy Hagrid, he doesn't fuck around, man. He goes downtown, he goes to get a little grab ass. My man, Hagrid is a beast, man. No questions asked. One move, goes for the grab ass. He's a G. That's not to say this is a perfect movie. I think the teenage drama is done perfectly. I think the fantasy works really well in this movie, as it does with the previous 3 movies. There are a few things I can nitpick about that I don't really like as much. First being Dumbledore again. I don't like this guy's performance compared to the previous performance. Here more so than Prisoner of Azkaban. I think his performance is very violent. There's a scene where he goes to Harry and he grabs Harry like this and he's like,
Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?
No, sir.
You asked one of the oldest students to do it for you?
No, sir.
that to me is not Dumbledore. Dumbledore would never grab Harry like that. He he's a more commanding presence than that. He doesn't need to get physical and grab someone. That's why I don't like this new performance of Dumbledore as much as the previous. I get it, they had to recast him, and I wonder how much of it is the actor himself and how much is the direction of the movie. People saying, listen, in the later Harry Potter movies, Dumbledore is going to have to become more physical, so therefore you need to play it more viscerally. That could be the problem at hand as well. It just doesn't work in this movie for me. I really love Mad-Eye Moody, and I think Professor Lupin is my favorite Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, but I think Mad-Eye Moody works in this movie as well. My dad always says, if you don't like pharmacy and you don't like film, you can always fall back on teaching. And if I did fall back on teaching and start teaching high school, I'd be Mad-Eye Moody. Just walking around, scaring the kids, fucking bullying the kids, turning them into ferrets and tossing them around, going in my corner and drinking my booze. That's what it'd be like if I were a high school teacher. One problem I have with the movie is that we don't really know a lot about Cedric Diggory. We're introduced to this character, and I wish he was along for the ride for the previous 3 movies. Maybe if he was just kind of like a background character in the first 3 movies, because when his death happened, I didn't really feel anything. I didn't feel like he was very attached to Harry. I get why Harry would be crying over his dead body because Voldemort killed him before his eyes. But I wish there was just a bit more of a connection between Cedric Diggory and Harry Potter. And we got to know a bit more about his character because we know he's a loyal guy. But that's about all we know about Cedric Diggory. And he's played by the sexy Robert Pattinson, ladies and gentlemen. That guy was getting some, you know? Between this and the Twilight movies, girls must have been all up in his DMs, texting him left and right. The ending drama does work, and when you're first introduced to Voldemort, that's a very creepy scene, how he's just like a fetus that's just like crawling around, and Peter Pettigrew carries him and puts him in the potion, and then he like, it kind of reminded me of Neo in the Matrix, how Neo kind of went through that whole process of being a fetus again and stuff like that. That was kind of similar with Voldemort, and we're first introduced to Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort in this movie. He will be the Voldemort for the next few movies, which is why I call this a more transitional Harry Potter movie. He's very good as Voldemort. As little as he was in this movie, he's a little hammy, but he gives it his all, and I can respect that. Overall, the story of Prisoner of Azkaban is better than the story in Goblet of Fire. I don't think anyone's arguing that. The time travel element, the whole Sirius Black thing, the whole thing with the werewolves, I think that all played out beautifully in the previous Harry Potter movie. Which is why I think, objectively, the previous Harry Potter movie is the better film. Now, as far as personal preference, the mixing of the fantasy element with the teen drama, and the fact that both are done so perfectly, unlike most movies of this genre. When you look at teen dramas mixed with fantasy, all what comes to mind is like shit like, I don't know, Percy Jackson, or that Aragorn movie. It's really hard to do it well, because teen dramas alone are very hard to do. It's hard to make you sympathize with teenagers, because most teenagers are dumb. They're full of acne, they sit in their own stench, and they play video games. This movie takes teenage dramas, does it perfectly, and then takes fantasy and does it perfectly, and meshes them together fairly well. I think this is the best Harry Potter movie in my opinion. Fuck the haters. I know people don't think this one's too good. I don't know. Do people think The Goblet of Fire is good? I know people love Prisoner of Azkaban, and I know people love 7 Part 2. I don't know. I don't hear people talking about Goblet of Fire all that much. Anyway, I think it slaps. It gets my seal of approval. Best Harry Potter movie.
Dark and difficult times lie ahead, Harry. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy.
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Now, going into this movie, I'm going to be flat out honest with you. From my memory, and I haven't seen these movies in a while, this was my least favorite of the bunch. Goblet of Fire was my favorite going into that one. And I think Goblet of Fire remains the best of the 4 I've seen so far in this series. Let's see if Order of the Phoenix changed my mind. Harry Potter returns to Hogwarts after Voldemort has risen. And he feels like he's not getting the proper education because of a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. So Harry Potter takes it in his own hands to teach his class and starts a secret club called the Order of the Phoenix. Overall, this movie is a mixed bag for me. It's mixed. I don't really like it all that much, to be honest. But I'll start off with the positives here. First of all, I like the propaganda subplot. The Ministry of Magic doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that Voldemort has returned because he doesn't want to fearmonger people, and Dumbledore and Harry Potter are struggling to get the Ministry of Magic to spread awareness about Voldemort. And I thought that subplot was interesting. The one thing that steals it for me in this movie is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. This girl is the original fucking Karen. What's her name? Dolores Claiborne? I thought she was so hateable in this movie. And we all know a girl like this. We all know a girl who's so like this. I remember while watching the movie, I took a snap of a certain scene where she was acting like a Karen, and I wrote the name of the person that we were all thinking about, and I sent it to my friends on Snapchat, and they were like, yes, accurate. There's that montage of her going around and saying, new rule, la 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 la. And it's like so much Karen vibes that I just freaking hated her. Like, Kenneth Branagh's Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, he was kind of hateable but kind of charming at the same time. Then you had people like Mad-Eye Moody and Professor Lupin, who are just charismatic. This girl, just hateable, and I liked how this movie went in that direction of just making a truly hateable character. Oh, one more thing about that, by the way. In close-ups, did the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher look like Will Ferrell to you? This is so weird to me. Every time there was a close-up on her face, it looked like Will Ferrell. I don't know what it is. I might be crazy. I might be off my rockers. But yeah, this Karen, oof, I wanted to slap her across the face. You can't slap women, ladies and gentlemen. But if you were to slap a woman, and if there was a woman who would deserve a slapping across the face, it would be the girl in this movie. Not the actress. The actress did a phenomenal job. I'm talking about the fictional character in this movie. I'm gonna stop talking before I say something I shouldn't. But yeah, this character... Okay, enough! The main problem I have with this movie is that the movie doesn't feel like a step forward, nor does it feel like a step backwards. It kind of just feels like nothing, which is weird. Usually these Harry Potter movies, they like progress the characters in a certain way. I don't feel like Harry Potter evolved as a character. I don't feel like Hermione evolved as a character. I don't feel like Ron evolved as a character. A lot of the side characters are kind of put off to the side. Hagrid's not in this movie all that much. Dumbledore is not in this movie all that much. Every time Harry Potter wants to talk to Dumbledore, Dumbledore is too busy and neglects him. Professor McGonagall, I don't even think is in this movie. And this movie is Harry Potter training his classmates, and when the final battle comes around, the only classmates that are there are the blonde chick, I forget her name, Luda, something. Her and Neville Longbottom, or I think that's his name. I suck with the Harry Potter names, they're too crazy for me. But yeah, so it kind of feels pointless that he's like training the Asian girl and his classmates, the Indian girls that he went to the prom with in the previous movie. It all feels kind of useless because we don't see them fight. Which, yeah, I had a problem with that. It makes the whole movie feel kind of pointless. The score here is also something that left a lot to be desired, and maybe it's because we've been spoiled with John Williams' classic score for the first 3 movies. But even the 4th movie, even though it was lacking John Williams, it still managed to do an okay score. This one, the score was not that good to me. It left a lot to be desired, and the look of the movie is a little murkier, it's a little gloomier. I feel like the story wasn't all that interesting, the score. I just feel like this movie had a lack of heart. It kind of feels that way. And I'm not saying that the director, David Yates, did a bad job per se. I just feel like it feels a little uninspired, whereas the first few Harry Potter movies, you can feel that little touch of magic in each one of them, each in their respective rights. I feel like Alfonso Cuarón in Prisoner of Azkaban just put his little touch of magic in there, and it made it feel so much awe, and I feel like that's lacking in this movie. It just feels like a little gloomy, a little meandering. As far as characters go too, I hate it in movies when a character will be needlessly moody or needlessly a jerk. And I feel like Harry Potter, towards the beginning of this movie, he's really treating his friends like an asshole. And I understand he's under a lot of pressure, but a characteristic like that doesn't want to make you root for the main character. Someone who snaps that easily, it doesn't make you want to root for the protagonist. And if it was one scene of him doing it, I would understand. But he repeatedly does it in the beginning of the movie. He'll like treat Ron like shit and treat Hermione like shit. And if I were friends with Harry Potter in this movie, I would have told the fucker to fuck off, man. Like, jeez, I'm trying to be a friend here, you know? Okay, I might not understand what you're going through. You got the freaking scar on your head, but jeez, you don't have to treat me like shit. I would have said that word for word. Also, like, while watching this movie, there is a lot of questionable effects, and I get this is an old movie, but when you compare the troll in the bathroom in the first Harry Potter to Hagrid's half-brother in this movie, the half-brother looks awful in this movie. I don't know what they were thinking. They could have made it easily like some guy who's just bigger and do some camera trickery to make him look bigger. I feel like they could have went down that route with the giant in this movie. But he just looked so bad. Like, it was actually jarring to me how bad he looked in this movie. And I feel like they basically just introduced that character for one scene, and then he comes back at the end and it's done. They don't give Hagrid a lot to do in this movie besides introduce the characters to his half-brother, who comes to save the day at some point towards the end of this movie. And what I liked about the early Harry Potter movies is that it felt like high school. 1 and 2 feels like when you first go into high school. 3 and 4 feels like going through puberty in that awkward phase of you trying to talk to girls but you're not quite adequate yet. This one kind of feels like nothing. And that's what I mean by the characters didn't grow in this movie. It feels like a whole lot of nothing went on in this movie. So, this is my least favorite Harry Potter movie so far. I'm gonna warn you guys, I didn't like 6 as well, but I haven't seen it yet. I'll let you guys know if my thoughts have improved on the film. But yeah, definitely Order of the Phoenix is the least interesting one to me.
Harry Potter, you will lose everything.
Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Now, the first time I watched this movie, I lumped it in the same category as Order of the Phoenix. If you guys saw my previous review, I didn't really like Order of the Phoenix. And when I saw this movie the first time, I watched it in theaters. Actually, it wasn't in theaters. I watched it when it came out, but I won't explain how. It was a long time ago. I'm not about that life anymore. Guys, this movie follows Harry Potter, and he's on his way to class, and he discovers that he has a book that was previously in the possession of someone called the Half-Blood Prince. Meanwhile, Harry Potter has to kind of infiltrate and get in the mind of his potions teacher, who seems to have some secrets he doesn't want to divulge. Yeah, so like I said, I didn't like this movie the first time I watched it, and I rewatched it, and I think I was just in a shitty mood that day, because I thought this movie was pretty good in my opinion. Now, I think this movie is better than Chamber of Secrets, and better than Order of the Phoenix, but not as good as the other Harry Potter movies. This one, to me, continues a trend that I like with these movies. That trend being that we see Harry Potter and Ron and Hermione get more mature as teenagers as the story goes on. This movie has your teenagers experimenting with love and experimenting with drugs, and I thought that was a little clever twist in this movie as well. The characters in this movie are often experimenting with drugs. Well, they call it potions, but to me they're experimenting with drugs. Ron takes a love potion at a certain point. Harry Potter takes a luck potion, and it kind of makes him this drunk guy, which that allowed for a lot of laughs in this movie. Harry has grown as a character, he's grown as a man, he's getting close to manhood in this movie. He's becoming a bit of a player. Girls see him in the newspaper and they fawn over him. At the beginning of the movie, there's this cute black chick that's hitting on Harry Potter. Ayo, my man! Let's fucking go! I was rooting for Harry, I wanted him to get some poontang! So unlike the other movies where they always introduce a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, in this movie, Severus Snape becomes the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And it was always this running joke in the movies that he always wanted to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, and they always got some fucking asshole instead of him. So in this movie, he finally becomes the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Meanwhile, they have a new potions teacher, which I forget what the character's name is, but he was pretty fun in the movie. When we're first introduced to him, Dumbledore and Harry Potter enter his apartment, and they're looking for him. His place is a mess. Kind of reminded me of Indiana Jones 3, when they go to get Henry Jones and his apartment is all fucked up. They do a similar thing in here, but turns out that the teacher was actually hiding in the couch, and he pops out of the couch. It reminded me a lot of another movie. There's this movie called Spy Hard, which is one of those Leslie Nielsen spoof movies. And there's a guy in that movie, a recurring character, that he's a master at hiding. And there's a scene where Leslie Nielsen is farting on a couch, and it turns out that the couch was actually the guy who's hiding. What I liked about this movie is something I usually hate in teen romances, but I feel like the Harry Potter movies always do teen romance well. The teen romance in here really works, because Ron is dating this girl that he doesn't really like, and I remember when I was that age and I used to hang around chicks that I thought were very unappealing and uninteresting, but pussy comes and goes and you gotta grab it while you can, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I didn't just say that. No, like when you're at that age, you're so desperate to have a girlfriend. If that means dating someone that you don't really like, you just do it anyway. I thought that was very interesting. Meanwhile, Hermione is a little jealous. She had the hots for Ron, which that to me is a little confusing because based on the previous films, Hermione seems actually pretty repulsed by Ron. I wish in the previous films they did it that she's like kind of grossed out by Ron, but it's kind of like when you're in kindergarten, you're like, ew, girls are gross, but meanwhile you have a little crush on a girl. I wish they played it more like that, but this kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Harry has the hots for Jenny, and he feels awkward expressing that love because it's the sister of his best friend, and he doesn't want to ruin his friendship. I thought all that was interesting, and like I say, with every one of these reviews, the first Harry Potter movie is about when you first go to high school, then 3 and 4 is about that awkward puberty stage. Here, it's a lot about the experimenting with love and drugs. These characters are starting to become a little more comfortable with the idea of getting a little romantic, and they do some substances. Maybe that's just me that got the idea of that in this movie, but I feel like that's like the next step in these characters' maturity. So like I complained about in Order of the Phoenix, I feel like the characters didn't grow. I feel like this movie makes up for that. Other than that, new characters that are around here, I didn't talk about her in the previous Harry Potter movie. I should in this one. I feel like Helena Bonham Carter does a great Bellatrix Lestrange. She's such a hateable person whenever she sees Harry Potter. She's like, I killed... what is his name? I killed Sirius Black! And she's like taunting Harry Potter. She's such an evil witch, both literally and figuratively. I really hated her in this movie. And I'm not gonna lie, I got a bit of a crush on Helena Bonham Carter. What that says about me, I have no clue. I just think she's an attractive person in this weird hot topic-y way. Another one of the Death Eaters in this movie, I don't know what his name is in the movie, but he really looks like the hockey player Alex Ovechkin, which I'm a little mean for doing this comparison, but as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh my god, that looks like Alex Ovechkin. I love Alex Ovechkin, don't get me wrong. He's one of the best players in the NHL and one of the funniest trolls in the NHL. This is a totally off-topic thing, but I just need to express my love for Alex Ovechkin. There is an All-Star game, and the way the NHL All-Star game works is that they'll do a draft, and it's kind of like pickup hockey where you like kind of separate the sticks and you draft players and stuff like that. That's what they do in the NHL All-Star game, and the person who gets chosen last wins a car or something like that. Yeah, they win a car. And Alex Ovechkin really wanted a free car, and whenever the reporters would go to Ovechkin, they're like, "Hey, Ovechkin, what are your thoughts on the All-Star game?" He'd be like,
I want to be last. I need a car, so...
When they were like picking the players one by one, the two captains, they did it on purpose just to piss off Ovechkin. They picked him before last. That was a major troll move, but that was really funny. I don't know why I'm talking about NHL. I'm probably losing you guys. I thought the humor was really on point in this movie. I thought like the situational humor was very funny. There's that scene where Hermione and Harry are hiding behind a curtain. They get finger food, and it turns out the finger food gives you bad breath, and Hermione is just chugging them. That's the kind of humor I like in a blockbuster movie. It's more of a situational kind of humor. And I feel like so often, ever since the success of Marvel, there's some Marvel movies that do it well. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy movies do it well, but sometimes they'll just throw in a comedy scene just because the scene is boring. They'll throw in humor. And while watching this movie, as well as the previous Harry Potter movies, they're all really funny movies, and it's more of a situational kind of humor. You know these characters, and it's how these characters react in certain situations that are funny. It's not necessarily what they are saying that is funny. Like, we like characters like Iron Man because he's quippy and he's really funny, but I feel like that worked in Iron Man, and they're trying to like put that in every movie. An example of one that never worked for me was in Captain America Civil War. Again, I'm going off tangents, I'm really sorry, but in Captain America Civil War, there's like the part where Ant-Man becomes giant, and after that he shrinks, and he just removes his mask, and he's like, "Does anyone have any orange slices?" And I'm like, I don't know, I feel like the humor in the Marvel movies is just shooting everything at you, versus in Harry Potter, it's very situational. It's because it's the characters that we understand, we know, and they're acting like the characters that we've come to learn. Going into the negatives now, I feel like sometimes the humor clashes with the look of this movie. There's some scenes that are very funny, but they're edited like a serious movie, and the color grading is very dark and dim when sometimes it shouldn't be dark and dim. This is overall a darker Harry Potter movie. Even when compared to Order of the Phoenix, this is a much darker movie. And yeah, I feel like sometimes the editing, the style of the movie doesn't really fit with the humor when there is those humorous parts. I feel like a movie like Goblet of Fire did it perfectly. There are some funny scenes in Goblet of Fire when they're at the ballroom dance. That whole scene was funny, and it didn't feel gloomy. It felt bright. But then when Cedric Diggory dies, then the tone gets gloomy and the colors get gloomy and the editing becomes slower and more dramatic. I feel like this movie struggles with that balance a bit more. What I like about this movie, I always separate the Harry Potter movies in halves, years 1 through 4. The fourth one being the transition into the second half. 5, 6, 7 part 1 and 7 part 2 are like kind of its own beast in my opinion. And when it comes to that second half, the Half-Blood Prince is basically the Empire Strikes Back of the second half of the Harry Potter movies. When you watch The Empire Strikes Back, it's a very, very dark movie. Your characters are set a step back. Luke Skywalker gets his hand cut off. Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite. It ends with them like, fuck, we gotta do something now. And that's how the movie ends. Even with a movie like Avengers Infinity War, I feel like that's a movie that did it well also. Half of your characters die. Thanos has all the Infinity Gems. Thanos runs away with all the Infinity Gems, and your characters are just like, okay, where do we go from here? And Half-Blood Prince is the same thing, but for the Harry Potter universe. This movie ends, and we find out that Severus Snape is actually the bad guy, so we think. Dumbledore is dead and he was the one symbol of hope holding everyone together. There's this line early on in the movie that alludes to it, where either Lupin or Harry Potter, or Ron Weasley's dad says, "We have to have faith in Dumbledore because he's the only person we know to be truthful." And then the movie ends with Dumbledore dying, and you're like, where do our characters go from here? And it ends with them realizing that the Horcrux, the thing that basically Dumbledore sacrificed himself for, is a complete hoax. It's not even the real MacGuffin of this film. So your characters are really left like, what the fuck do I do from here? And that's something I really liked about this movie. And speaking of Dumbledore, I've been critical of the new Dumbledore that changed ever since episode 3. I thought his performance was more cold and not as warm as the first Dumbledore. Here he gets a lot better. I don't know if, like, he toned it down a bit. He did tone it down a bit. I remember he was very yelly in episode 3 and 4, but now he's, like, more laid back, and he really develops a bond with Harry Potter in this film, which makes his death a lot more dramatic. And especially that scene where him and Harry Potter go into that cave, and there's, like, zombies and creatures like that, and Dumbledore is forced to drink a potion that turns him weak and angry and makes him not himself. And it's really interesting to see Dumbledore at his most vulnerable. You look at a movie like, going back to Star Wars, the original trilogy, the mentor character, Obi-Wan, we never really saw him in a vulnerable position. Same thing with a mentor character like Gandalf. Like Gandalf, we never saw him as vulnerable as we see Dumbledore in this movie. So it really made it interesting, and it made his character a lot more developed to me. This character, it was built up as a guy who's like the symbol of hope, but you see him like very terrified and not himself and almost in an Alzheimer-like state. Those are the moments where you build your character up, and when Dumbledore dies in this movie, you feel it more because you saw him at such a vulnerable position, and you saw that he was so passionate about this journey that he was willing to put himself in harm's way. So it makes his death feel a lot more tragic. Unlike Sirius Black, when he died, I didn't really feel anything. But when Dumbledore died in this movie, even when I did have my criticisms of the new Dumbledore in my previous reviews, I feel like this one really did it for me. I thought he redeemed himself in this movie. The editing in this movie, much like the previous Harry Potter movies, I feel like gets a little too fast and doesn't leave a lot of room to breathe. An example is that scene where Dumbledore is faced with all those challenges. I feel like the editing there was very fast. There's this clip, I don't know if I can find it again, but Harry Potter goes to reach into the river to get Dumbledore some water, and there's a zombie hand that pops out and goes to grab Harry Potter. Harry Potter is taken aback, and there's like 15 cuts of him just walking away from the zombie hand. Not only that, but scenes where it should be beautiful and very awe-inspiring, I feel like are cut short, probably due to time constraints. That scene where Dumbledore is wielding fire around him and killing all the zombies. I wish that scene was dragged out slower, because that's the scene where we see Dumbledore at his most grandiose, and I wish that the music had time to swell up, and he had time to like grab Harry's hand and stuff like that, more of an emotional beat. But it's kind of done a little too quick, in my opinion. But other than those criticisms that I have, I feel like this is a very quality Harry Potter movie, which I didn't expect. I went into this movie thinking that I wouldn't like this one, much like I didn't like Order of the Phoenix. I feel like this movie does it pretty well. I have a few gripes with it. It's not a perfect movie, but I feel like this is a solidly told Harry Potter movie. Like I said, I like the teen romance in here. I like the fact that these teens are experimenting with drugs and love. And then when the movie takes a dramatic turn, it really works. And I like the fact that this is basically J.K. Rowling's Empire Strikes Back. So, yeah, Half-Blood Prince, the more I talk about it, actually, the more I like it. I feel like this is a well-done Harry Potter movie. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I just watched both movies back to back, Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Deathly Hallows Part 2. I'm gonna look up the summary of Deathly Hallows Part 1 because it's starting to blur what's in one movie and what's in the other one. Hold on a sec. As Harry... here we go. Okay. As Harry, Ron, and Hermione raced against time and evil to destroy the Horcruxes, they uncover the existence of the three most powerful objects in the wizarding world. The Deathly Hallows. That's the summary of the movie. Do I like this movie? Let me get into my relationship with Harry Potter at this point when these movies came out, actually. The problem I have with the Harry Potter movies is that there's so much lore and mythology that it was hard for me to keep up. And these movies, they'd come out every year. So I'd watch the movie, I'd watch episode 5, then a year would go by and I forget what happened. Then I'd watch episode 6, and then I'd forget what happened. And then I watched episode 7. And the first time I watched this movie, I absolutely hated it, I'm not gonna lie. I was completely lost, I had no clue what was going on. Is that still the case? Well, yes, I still don't like this movie all that much. Come at me, Potterheads! Swarm of Potterheads, come at me, I'm ready. I'm not big into this movie. And whenever I talk about this movie, it's always the same thing with the Potterheads. Oh, well, this is the one that's setting up, and the next one is gonna be the payoff. That's why you just didn't get it. I understand. But at the same time, you're making me watch a 2-hour film that's just set up and no payoff. And I'm not talking about action. I couldn't care less about action. I'll fucking watch movies that are so boring. This has more action than most movies that I watch. I don't care. It's just everything is set up. Like Harry Potter's character is all set up. Ron's character is all set up. Hermione's character is all set up. The plot is all set up. The movie doesn't really have a point other than to set up. Okay? This movie is like an advertisement for the next movie. Which I understand why they did it. The book Harry Potter 7 was so dense that they had to split it into 2 movies. I get it. But at the same time, I don't read books, so I don't care. I'm not sympathetic. If I read books, I'm sure I'd be more understanding, but I don't read books. The last book I read was Dr. Seuss's One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. Okay? I read that book. It was a good read. I love Dr. Seuss's use of alliteration. Other than that, I've never read a book in my life, okay? So yeah, I'm just gonna go through some stuff that either didn't make sense to me in this movie, or that I just didn't like about this movie. Keep in mind that there might be the answers to my question in the film, but I was paying close attention and it probably flew over my head. So if that's the case, I'm sorry, but geez, I'm only human. Alright, first problem I had with this movie was the first setup, the whole opening. So you have Harry Potter, and they're trying to escape from Harry Potter's house with the Dursleys, and they're trying to bring him to Ron's house, but everyone's on the lookout for Harry Potter, so they have to do it as discreetly as possible. So their plan is that a ton of the people in the Order of the Phoenix are going to drink Polyjuice Potion, transform into Harry Potter, and they're all going to fly together, and hopefully the Dementors and the Death Eaters and everyone on their asses are going to mistaken the wrong Harry Potter. That was their plan. So this happens, it goes, and I actually kind of liked that sequence. It was pretty clever, and you got to ride along with Hagrid on his motorcycle, which is something I really enjoy about J.K. Rowling, is how she gives characters a tool that only that character would use. So Hagrid's bike is a motorcycle, which is very Hagrid. Mad-Eye Moody is riding a fucking broomstick where he's leaning back, and it's like one of those chopper motorcycles, which kind of fits his character too. I like that, okay? That's not my problem. My problem is fucking Hedwig dying and no one giving 2 squirts of piss. Honestly! What was that all about? Harry Potter just saw the fucker die and he was like, oh. Oh? Guys, this is the main problem with the movie. It rushes through the character shit, and it dwells on the plot. I would have done a switch. Fuck the plot, let's dwell on the character shit. Hedwig was such an important character to Harry Potter. Because when he's a kid, when he's in episode 1 and episode 2, when he's at home with the Dursleys and he's like really hating his life, he looks at his owl and that John Williams score swells up, and Harry's thinking of that fantasy world of Hogwarts, of his real home. Hedwig was always a symbol of that in the movies, and there's a reason why John Williams made a score just for the bird. He made a score. John Williams wrote Hedwig's theme and chalked on pen and paper a score for the bird. And you're just gonna kill him like that? Show some respect to the great John Williams. No, they just killed the bird, which I hated. I didn't like how they dealt with that at all. And sure, the bird saved Harry Potter. He freaking dodged it and had the Avada Kedavra and killed himself off and sacrificed himself for, I almost called him Peter Parker, Harry Potter. I get it. It was just so rushed over. I was like kind of insulted. And as if that didn't fucking piss me off enough, they land, and one of the characters, I think it was either Fred or George or one of those guys, was like, oh, by the way, Mad-Eye Moody is dead. So he died off screen and you didn't show me? Honestly, what? Mad-Eye Moody was the best. And I wish they just had some time to like let it breathe instead of just killing two of the major characters. It feels like in Alien 3 when they kill Newt like in the like off screen between the movies, and you're just like, well, there goes that, I guess. That's how it felt like. Have a scene where Harry Potter and Hagrid are like, Harry is crying to Hagrid because Hedwig died, and then Mad-Eye Moody can be like, who gives a shit? It was just a bird. Let's move on. And then Hagrid can be like, no, it wasn't just a bird. I remember when Backbeak died. Backbeak! Backbeak! I don't know. That's what I would have done, but yeah, I guess Moody died too, so you can't really pull that scene off. I noticed that this movie had... Now, this is just me speculating. I feel like this movie was kind of trying to ride off the success of Twilight, because they saw that Twilight was a popular teen romance movie, and they wanted to kind of do that, which is weird because there was a phase where everyone was trying to rip off Harry Potter. Like, there was like the Percy Jackson movies, the Aragorn movies, and I feel like everything was trying to rip off Harry Potter for a second, trying to ride off its success. And so there's a lot of scenes in this movie that kind of reminded me of Twilight, just characters like staring at one another, the cinematography that feels like half-assed Terrence Malick, the nature shots, people like staring and acting moody, and it felt very Twilighty to me. And to me, it's like, okay, Twilight came out in what, 2007, 2008, this movie came out in what, 2010? I don't know, I'm just speculating. One of the characters who's especially moody in this film is Ron. And if you guys have seen my previous Harry Potter reviews, I think it was like episode 5 or episode 6, I was complaining that sometimes Harry would act needlessly moody, and I understand he's under stress, but when you do that, it makes your character look bad, and it makes me not relate to your character. Ron takes Harry's moodiness and fucking buries that fucking record. Ron is so moody in this movie, it's so annoying to me. He's like, what are you guys gonna fucking make out now, huh? It's like, God, Ron, just... The world is at stake here. It's not all about you, man. Just take it easy. And I get it. He has the necklace around him, and the necklace makes him moody. I understand that. I just thought it was lazy. I get it. I know. Just come at me, haters. Here's another thing I didn't understand, is the rules of teleportation in this movie. Now, some of the times the characters can teleport in this movie, other times they can't. When they're first escaping with Harry Potter, and Mad-Eye Moody is there, and the Order of the Phoenix is there, and they're trying to bring Harry from the Dursleys to the Weasleys, they don't teleport. Which, okay, yeah, I didn't even think of that at the beginning of the movie. Then all of a sudden, Hermione can teleport. Which I'm like, okay, you couldn't just teleport, get Harry, and teleport back? There's like so many things like that that just didn't make sense to me. Or sometimes they can teleport and sometimes they can't. Like, they get kidnapped by Bellatrix Lestrange. And I'm like, okay, just teleport. But no, they need Dobby to come and teleport for them. It was probably explained in the movie, if not in the book. Just wasn't clear to me, the rules on that. The movie had too many names. That's another thing, and I'm sure that works better in a long book, a big meaty book, where every character is super fleshed out so you can remember who they are. But in the movie, it's so fast-paced and there's so many names going on that I'm just like, okay, who's who now? Like, okay, Dumbledore, he's got a brother, okay, so they gotta go to the brother. And, oh, there's this weird witch lady and she's a historian and she would know where Dumbledore's brother is, okay? And after a while, being introduced to so many characters, and not even introduced to them, you hear characters speculate about these characters, and we don't even get to see them or see what their personality is like. I was instantaneously forgetting who these characters were, who we have to go see next, and what's the next mission. Are we going to see, what was Dumbledore's brother's name? I'll just call him the brother. Dumbledore's brother, or is it the historian, or is it Ollivander? And it was like too many names after a while. I was doing mental gymnastics trying to remember who's who. Again, I think the main problem with this movie is that they had so much of the book they had to cram into a movie. And instead of focusing on the character stuff, I feel like they focused on the plot stuff. Because on the surface, fans want to see the plot. They want to see the beats of the story put on the screen. I get it. But it doesn't make for an interesting movie to me. A lot of the emotion just gets lost, I feel. And I feel like I was forgetting who these characters are and what they're all about. And it was just going from place to place. Teleport, invisible bubble, stay, next. Teleport, invisible bubble, stay, next. And rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. It was just so fast-paced to me. And I didn't have time to stay with these characters. And when I was staying with these characters, you'd get lazy things like a moody Ron. I don't want to see moody Ron. This is the last time these kids are on an adventure together. I feel like there was lacking that, like, friendship bond, that unbreakable bond between these three friends. It was just, like, Twilighty, like I said before. And since it did choose to focus on the plot more than on the characters, I just kept picking up on so many things that weren't consistent to me. There's a point where Hermione teleports to a certain spot with Harry and Ron, or just Harry at this point because Ron ditched them. But yeah, they teleport to a certain point. It's the woods and it's like icy. Hermione says, I love these woods. These are the woods that my parents used to take me to. Fine. Good. Then all of a sudden, Harry finds the sword of Gryffindor under the ice of the river. And I'm like, well, how the fuck did it get there? And then I think it was either very late in this movie, or even in the next movie, that they say the sword of Gryffindor goes to the people who need it the most, so it'll just appear. So I'm like, okay, that would have been good to know at some point. Like, instead of just me scratching my head for a whole movie, like, how did that get there? Speaking of going in the woods, a main problem I have with this movie is that the whole movie takes place in the Muggle world. For those of you who aren't Potterheads like myself, the Muggle world is the world that is not magical, basically real life, where you go and you get a coffee from Starbucks and you get a package from Amazon, and that's the only rush of dopamine you get all week before you have to go to your dead-end 9-to-5 job. That's the world we're living in now, ladies and gentlemen. That's the setting in which Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 decides to take place. That's a problem to me. Your fantasy movie takes place in the real world after being introduced to so many things: a whomping willow, a troll in the bathroom, a three-headed dog, a fucking magical room that appears and anything you want is in the room. and you choose to have your movie take place in the Muggle world. And again, I feel like that works better in a book because it's set up, you're waiting to get back to Hogwarts, you're waiting, and all of a sudden you get it. But this is a movie, and you're not getting that. They return to Hogwarts in the second movie. So you just spent a whole movie of Harry Potter running around in London. Imagine you're watching Star Wars, and Luke Skywalker and Han Solo are flying in the Millennium Falcon. They're escaping from the bad guys, from Darth Vader, there's stormtroopers on their tail, and Han Solo says, "Hold on, kid, I got a good hideout spot." And that hideout spot is Detroit. And it's just the characters chilling in Detroit. You got Chewbacca chilling in Detroit with Han Solo. They're eating I don't know, what do they eat in Detroit? Nothing, because the city is in ruins, no? They're fucking drinking the water and what the fuck is up with this water? It's so dirty. I can't drink this. That's what this movie felt like. I don't want to see these guys in the real world. I want to see them in the fantasy world. There are some I'm going hard on the movie here. There are some redeeming things. In that opening, I thought the motorcycle chase on a technical level was actually pretty exciting. It felt very fast-paced. There was a lot going on. Little too much shaky cam, and I can say that about the whole movie. There's some parts where there's some shaky cam going on, which I didn't really like. But yeah, there's some good action in this. I feel like the movie picks up speed when the characters get caught by Bellatrix Lestrange. And then Hermione puts a curse on Harry Potter to make his face ugly, and they don't recognize him, and they're trying to see if it's the real Harry Potter or not. I feel like all that was clever. And then you go into the prison, and there's Luna Lovegood, I think is her name, and Dobby, and Ollivander was the other guy there. And they had the little troll in there as well, or goblin. I thought that's the point where the movie started to pick up speed. And then these characters are trying to have a prison escape plan to escape Bellatrix Lestrange. And Helena Bonham Carter is so good in these movies. I feel like that's what I wanted, was just someone to chew the scenery. And Dobby, I was hard on Dobby before. If you guys watched my Chambers of Secrets review, I didn't like the guy. I thought he was annoying. I just wanted him to shut up at a certain point. But that's because of me. I'm an old man at this point, you know? Things loud happen. I'm like, no. But in this movie, he was really redeemed. He was actually a competent character. He was funny. There's that line he says that I love in this movie.
Dobby never meant to kill. Dobby only meant to maim or seriously injure.
That was a great line, and the way he delivered it was perfect. And that's a character, I feel like his death was perfect. It was so merited. Unlike Hedwig and Mad-Eye Moody, this character's death felt so merited. He's teleporting, and right as he's teleporting, he gets stabbed. And when he's dying in Harry Potter's arm, it's really poetic because Harry Potter is the man who freed Dobby, and all of a sudden, he's dying at the hands of Harry Potter. And it's sad, but it's happy at the same time because Harry is the one who gave him freedom. So it was very poetic, and Harry Potter was crying, and he was like, I want to bury him like a true burial. I don't want to do no magic shit. Felt very poetic in my opinion. I'm sure somewhere there's a fan edit of these movies, 7 Part 1 and 7 Part 2, which is a 3-hour movie, or a 3.5-hour movie, but it's better. Maybe they took some deleted scenes where it's more character stuff, removed some of the plot, and made a cinematic film. That's what happens when you're adapting books to movies. They don't always translate. There's some books that translate perfectly to film. Look at a movie like The Godfather. That's based on a book, right? And then sometimes you have to just carry the essence of the book into the film. A movie like Apocalypse Now, speaking of Francis Ford Coppola, is not really like Hearts of Darkness, the book. But Francis Ford Coppola understood the spirit of the book and then adapted that to screen. And I feel like everything Francis Ford Coppola was trying to say is eerily similar to the book Hearts of Darkness. I wish they would have done more of a spiritual adaptation rather than a literal adaptation. However, you get into some slippery slopes here. because you're gonna just end up cutting a lot of shit out, and then all the Harry Potter fanboys who are drinking butterbeer and wearing cloaks and shit, they're gonna get pissed. So it's a fine line. They chose to go the safer route, which was just to do the setup and adapt it like the book as best as they could, which I understand. It's a blockbuster film. This is the before last movie. You have to kind of play it safe. Now's not the time to start toying around with J.K. Rowling's mythology. This is one minor nitpick before I call this review off and just like leave you guys. This is the biggest minor nitpick ever, but I'm from Canada, so this one, like, it was glaring to me. So Harry Potter finds the Sword of Gryffindor under ice, and he does a spell to make like a little hole, and his plan is to jump in that little hole. Two things really pissed me off about that scene. One is that he leaves his wand right next to the water. Now, if that wand were to just slip off the edge, you're fucked, and they already set up that one of the wands is broken, so you would have been there with no wands. Please, leave the wand at the tent, and then come back and jump in the water. Second thing is, you couldn't make that a bigger hole. I mean, come on! Make it a bigger hole, destroy the whole pond if you have to. He does a little hole like this. Don't you guys... This can't be just a Canadian thing. Don't you guys know that a little hole like that is asking for nothing but trouble? Fucking Metallica has a song about it. It's called Trapped Under Ice. I used to play it on Guitar Hero. Harry, what are you doing, my boy? Bigger hole, come on! Alright, that's all I gotta say about this movie. That's all I gotta say. I'm gonna stop because I'm getting hot and sweaty and my blood pressure's rising. I'm gonna record the second part right now, and people who are just tuning in tomorrow are gonna be like, why is he all sweaty? But you guys will know at least. Anyway, yeah, I didn't really like this movie. This is probably the weakest Harry Potter movie. Sorry. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2. Guys, Harry Potter is back for one last rodeo. He's gotta destroy the remaining Horcruxes, which are the chunks of soul of Lord Voldemort, and after that, he must destroy Voldemort once and for all with the aid of his two fidel friends, Hermione and one Ronald Weasley. Guys, if you saw my previous review, I wasn't a fan of the previous Harry Potter 7 Part 1, but will I like this one? That's to remain seen. Also, in case you guys didn't see my previous videos where I said it, I'm not going to review the Fantastic Beasts movies. To me, it ends with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I don't care what anyone says. I feel like those don't feel like real movies to me. I feel like they just made it because Harry Potter is a valuable IP. I'm not going to review those movies, okay? But I am going to give my quick thoughts on Fantastic Beasts 1. I haven't seen Fantastic Beasts 2 yet. So Fantastic Beasts 1, I literally can't remember anything about that movie except two things, and it's two positive things. I really liked Dan Fogler's character, and that ending where it's raining and the rain wipes out his memory is a very sentimental scene. The other thing I really liked about that movie was actually Eddie Redmayne's performance, and he's an actor that I've had trouble with in the past. I feel like all of his performances are kind of hammy. He really works in the Fantastic Beasts movies, and the reason why he works is because they kind of play it off like this character might be on the autism spectrum. That's what I got anyway. It might be offensive that I imply that, but whatever. And it's really cool because he socially can't communicate with people all that well. He has difficulty communicating with other individuals, but when it comes to animals, he loves animals. And I feel like that was a very interesting character trait to have in a movie. Alas, I am not reviewing, what was the movie called? Fantastic Breasts and Where to Find Them. Pornhub. Yeah, I'm reviewing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Can you please make it a longer title so I can run out of breath even more with these titles? Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Alright, I'm getting a little weird. It's really late. I'm sorry. So, let's go through some of the things I liked about this movie. Overall, I like the movie. I don't think it's the best Harry Potter movie. I don't even think it's top 5 Harry Potter movies, to be quite honest. And I know that's blasphemy because when you go on IMDb, this is the highest rated Harry Potter movie. But what really works about this movie, is the finale. The finale, you have these kids that you've been following for so long, and it's emotional when you see them one last time. I get it. But there's a whole movie that comes with it as well. And that's what really works about this movie, is that finale. I'm just gonna jump right into the finale, I guess. But yeah, it really does feel emotional because when I grew up with these characters, and I was growing up with these characters. To see these people that I grew up with say one last goodbye, it's really emotional. And on the one hand, I'm sure fanboys and fangirls are pissed that Daniel Radcliffe refuses to do another Harry Potter movie. I think that's actually a really good decision on his part. Just let the movies be. They were a good franchise of movies, a good series of movies. They've had some ups and downs. Which franchise doesn't? But overall, it's just like a solid stack of movies to have on a shelf. You can pick one up whenever you want, and it's a good one. Just leave the movies be. I'm so happy Daniel Radcliffe doesn't want to return as Harry Potter. Part of that is because he's trying to distance himself as far as a performer, because, believe it or not, I don't know if you guys have ever seen another movie with Daniel Radcliffe. I think he's a really talented actor. Swiss Army Man. Great movie in my opinion. In Swiss Army Man, the boy plays a corpse. And I know what you're saying at home. How can a man play a corpse? Daniel Radcliffe plays it off. He plays a fucking corpse in that movie, and that corpse had a lot of heart. He's got a lot of heart, kid. I'm gonna talk about the ending more towards the end of my review, which I guess would be more appropriate. I just wanted to say that off the bat. This movie is glittered with plenty of callbacks to the previous Harry Potter movies. You got the Chamber of Secrets from the movie Chamber of Secrets. You got the bank Gringotts from the first Harry Potter movie. You got the Room of Requirements from the 5th Harry Potter movie. This movie reminded me a lot of Avengers Endgame. If you guys saw Avengers Endgame, they're time traveling to different set pieces of the previous films. This is basically doing the same thing. You're going to the Chamber of Secrets, the Room of Requirement, the Bank Vault, all these places, these iconic places from the previous film, in a kind of trotting adventure that you follow these characters with. And I thought that some of those callbacks were pretty neat. I liked it when they go to the Room of Requirement, and it's just like this freaking garbage room now. I like that whole sequence where they're going in the bank, and they have to ride a dragon out of the bank. I thought that was pretty neat. And then there's some parts where I feel like it's so on the nose that I'm like, okay, you didn't have to throw that in. There's a part where in the Room of Requirements, Harry Potter is climbing a mount of garbage, and the pixies from the Chamber of Secrets start flying everywhere. And I was like, oh shit, here we go again. They're gonna pull the kids by the ears, and they didn't do anything. It was just some callback. Yeah, I thought that was kind of lazy, and there's a couple of those lazy callbacks in here. But when they actually do something with the previous films, settings, and totems and stuff like that, I feel like that's what's really good here. They bring back an iconic character from the previous films, which is, I don't know his name, but he's the goblin in the bank. Guys, I'm gonna go on a little rant here. I don't know if this is just a me thing. In the first Harry Potter movie, the guy who plays the bank teller is Vern Troyer. For those of you who don't know Vern Troyer is the guy who plays Mini-Me in Austin Powers. And in this movie, they didn't bring him back. I mean, what is up with that? They didn't bring back Mini-Me. They brought back everyone else. They couldn't bring back Mini-Me? I think, and this is just me speculating, Mini-Me recently passed away. Vern Troyer passed away recently. May he rest in peace. But he was really unhealthy towards the end of his life. He was struggling with alcoholism, and he was just not in a healthy spot in his life. So it might have been because of that. Or because Mini-Me wasn't the guy I'm talking about. It could be that too. They're all covered in makeup anyway, I can't tell the difference. Another thing that made me kind of confused about this movie. So there's a part where Draco Malfoy recruits the help of Crabbe and Goyle. Psych! It's only one of them. It's only Goyle and a random black dude. And I'm like, what? It's usually Crabbe and Goyle. Why is there some random black dude that's not one of them? I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, it's not like Crabbe and Goyle are actors that have like other things to do. Like seriously, is Crabbe just like, hey guys, I know you really want me to be in Harry Potter 7, but actually I'm busy. I'm meeting the Queen of England, and after that I'm meeting the President of the United States. I would love to be in your movie, but I couldn't make it, sorry. Yeah, it's just funny to me. Alright, back to serious stuff here. And one thing that I thought was really remarkable about J.K. Rowling's storytelling, now I'm just going based off the movies, I can't really judge the books because I don't read. We've addressed that in my previous review. One thing that I think she was really clever about is that this story is basically the story of Jesus, and she said she was influenced by the story of Jesus, and that is basically a retelling of the New Testament, which is why the story works so good. But also she throws in some twists in there. So Harry Potter is the Jesus character, and especially in this movie, there's a lot of, it alludes a lot to the Bible. Harry Potter knows that he's going to die, and a lot of the portion of this movie is him coming to terms with that, and he actually goes to heaven in this movie. He actually resurrects in some way. Yeah, it felt very Jesus, and Snape is basically your Judas character, but she does something really clever with Snape in this movie. You would think Snape is just a backstabber like Judas, but no, she actually redeems him. And you go back in the previous movies in that scene, and you'll see the parts in which he was actually there. He was actually the one protecting Harry Potter along the way, which it's a great twist on a story that we've heard numerous times. And it really works emotionally, because this is this character who you've learned to hate so much, and then you watched the previous movies through a different lens, and you're like, oh my god. The one thing that did strike me is, if you look back at Harry Potter 6, there's that scene where he kills Dumbledore, and he just marches away. And when you watch Harry Potter 6 for the first time, not knowing that Snape killed Dumbledore, he's marching away, and you're thinking like, oh, this guy's just a fucking ruthless badass who just doesn't give a fuck. He's just marching away like he doesn't give a shit. But then when you watch the movie after having seen 7 Part 2, it makes a lot more sense. You're like, wait, he's walking away as quickly as he can because he knows he did something that's deeply, deeply troubling to him, and he has to leave before other people can see him. That scene in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince has so much more meaning now, in my opinion. And I'm sure there's a ton of those scenes sprinkled throughout all of the Harry Potter movies of Snape just looking like a jerk initially, but you go back and watch them and he's actually a redeemable character. And yeah, I feel like that was all beautifully done. And when he dies, it's actually probably the most emotional part of this movie to me, which is saying a lot. It really just goes to show how good an actor Alan Rickman is. May he rest in peace as well. A lot of the actors in this are dead, come to think about it. It's only 10 years old. But yeah, his performance in this movie is actually really good to pull off something like that, to make a character both very hateable on first glance, but then very lovable at second glance. One thing I didn't like, though, I feel like they kind of botched his makeup. They try to make him look younger in certain scenes, and they kind of just put a lot of pencil on his eyebrow. It kind of looks a little strange to me. But other than that, that's a nitpick. That was the best part of this movie to me. Speaking of influences from the Bible, I noticed that J.K. Rowling also had some influences from SpongeBob. Guys, the scene where Harry Potter and Dumbledore are in purgatory, wasn't that eerily reminiscent of when Squidward is finally alone in that SpongeBob episode and he's in purgatory? I don't know. It's far-fetched, I understand. I really liked that scene in purgatory, actually. because it actually gave the story some room to breathe, and we got to see that creepy looking fetus just like on the ground. Other than Snape, the character who steals the show here as well is Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort, because he's so hammy in this, and I feel like Voldemort is one of those perfect antagonists you just love to hate. He's got an iconic look just like a Darth Vader, and you just love hating the guy. He's got like a badass voice. He's a little hammy, we're not gonna hide it, he's a little hammy. The boy who lived. But it just works for some reason. I love Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort. Just like in the previous movie, I had a problem with some of the characters dying off screen in this. One of those characters being Professor Lupin, he dies off screen. Another one being, who was the other guy? Oh yeah, one of the twins, I don't know if it was Fred or George, it was one of them, but he dies off screen as well. Again, I have a problem with these movies choosing to keep plot rather than choosing to keep character from J.K. Rowling's book. An example of that actually is the character of Dumbledore's brother. I would have removed that completely from the movies. I know, it's probably blasphemy. I would have just found like some other way that Harry Potter can go back to Hogwarts and just cut that whole scene out completely. It was not useful to me. It didn't do anything. It's just another thing that the characters have to go to in order to go to the next place, and in order to go to the next place, and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. I would have cut that whole plot out. You don't need Dumbledore's brother in this movie. And if you cut that out, you allow more scenes of seeing one last moment with Lupin. Again, I haven't read the books, so I don't know how much blasphemy I'm committing right now. But just judging on the movie, I would have rather it focus more on the characters. Still to this moment, I really don't understand why, in terms of the movies anyway, I don't know about the books, I don't understand the Deathly Hallows, because they're introduced to the Deathly Hallows as being these very important things, and in order to truly beat the B-Ruler, you have to have the invisibility cloak, the resurrection stone, and the wand. I thought the whole purpose of that story was that in order to defeat Voldemort, you would have to destroy all the Horcruxes, collect the Deathly Hallows, and then you can kill Voldemort. I thought that's what the plot was trying to go for in 7 Part 1, but then in this movie, we don't really see the invisibility cloak. Okay, we do, but it's so that they can go into the bank vault, and you don't really do much with it. In the last minute, you remember, oh wait, the resurrection stone, it was in the snitch this whole time, and then Harry chooses not to use it, and then he gets Voldemort's wand and just snaps it. So I was really confused there. I was like, why is this MacGuffin so important? I do understand the point of all that to a certain extent. It was to show that this fable that was told in the previous movie, all of those objects corrupted them except the invisibility cloak, and Harry Potter held on to his invisibility cloak. Meanwhile, he let go of the resurrection stone and broke the wand, which is smart. That again, I feel like is probably told better in the book rather than the movie. They didn't really make that clear, but yeah, like I wish they did make that clear, because this whole time I thought Harry was gonna defeat Voldemort with the invisibility cloak, the wand, and the stone, but he didn't do that. Again, the idea is good, just should have been polished out a bit more so that a newbie like me can understand that shit. Guys, there was one death that could have happened, that could have worked, that they didn't do in this movie. I feel like if they killed Ron, I would have been okay with it, because Ron is always the cowardly character, and I feel like I wanted to see him do that one big thing to make his character not cowardly anymore. I wanted to see him redeem himself and become a hero, and I feel like Ron's death would have been justified in a movie like this. It would have been really badass if he just said, like, he did something heroic to save Harry Potter. That would have been something really selfless of him, because in the previous movie it was so selfish. I kept waiting for something in this movie to redeem him, and it never really happened. It's kind of like what Star Wars Episode 8 tried to do, when Finn is going to drive a ship into a giant laser blaster thing. You think, oh, this cowardly character is finally gonna be redeemed and he's gonna kill himself, and they're just like, yeah, nah, we need him back for episode 9, and they don't do it. I feel like it was a similar thing in this movie where they didn't really have the nutsack to kill Ron. Again, I'm sure he redeems himself better in the book, just in terms of movie. And you know what? There's one thing that was shown off screen that I really wish they put in the movie as well. Talking about cutting out Dumbledore's brother, it would have made room for this. There's a scene where Hermione goes to Harry Potter and says, oh, we got an idea on how to destroy the last Horcrux without the Sword of Gryffindor. Actually, it was Ron that came up with it. We can go to the Chamber of Secrets. And I'm like, throughout these 8 movies, every time these characters would go around a table in the library or ponder in the Gryffindor common room, it's always Harry Potter and Hermione breaking their heads. Meanwhile, Ron is in the background eating a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. And the one time Ron gets a good idea, it's shown off screen. Come on, guys. That's what I mean. I wish they showed more of the character stuff, less of the plot stuff. Dumbledore's brother was cool and all. I actually really liked him, because Dumbledore's brother is all high and mighty, and meanwhile Dumbledore's brother, he's just like drinking beer, and he's like, fuck it, we're all gonna die anyway. Cheers, mate. That was pretty funny. But other than that, just cut out Dumbledore, make some room for that Ron scene. I wanted to see Ron actually get the idea and impress Harry Potter, instead of just like, oh yeah, it was Ron's idea. Ha! Could you believe it? That fucker got an idea? Yeah, I'm gonna go back to that ending. So in the end, there's some casualties. One of the twins dies, Lupin dies, and it's a very emotional scene when Harry Potter is looking at Hogwarts and it's all broken down and everything, and he hugs Hagrid. And that's not what's really emotional to me is when they show the 19 years later and they're playing that John Williams song, na 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 na, and now Harry Potter is bringing his kids to Hogwarts. That's really what that got me in the feels. And I'm not even the biggest Harry Potter fan, but that's really what got me emotional in this movie as well, was seeing them grown up. And you know, it's like you have your friends in high school, and then after a while you get married and you have kids and see your friends every once in a while, and Ron put up weight. Fuck, I miss those days, you know? Yeah, it really felt like that. It had a lot of emotion. Harry Potter named his kid Albus Severus Potter, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that ending is so beautiful, and what makes it even more beautiful is the fact that this is truly the last time that we got to see Ron, Hermione, and Harry. Please, Warner Bros., please. I know they're under a new ownership right now. Discovery. It's no longer AT&T. Thank God. Discovery, please don't make anything with Harry Potter, Hermione, and Ron. Just don't touch it ever again. Let that be the last moment we see these characters. That was so beautiful. I don't want to see anything else with those 3 characters. It got me thinking a lot of Marvel. Because Marvel, one of the problems they have is that they don't want to have a last movie. Like, if they truly wanted Endgame to be the last movie of the series, I'm sure it would have been a much more emotional finale. But they want to make movies after that. We just got Black Widow, and they want to make Shang-Chi, and I'm sure down the line they want to make more Hulk and Thor and these other characters. They want to make those movies as well. So the fact that they want to continue, you gotta pick one. Either make an emotional finale where you really end it, or just don't do it. I actually like Endgame quite a bit, though. It's just like, if you really know that this is gonna be your last movie, you would do stuff different. And I'm starting to review Avengers Endgame now, but whatever. I really like the character arcs in that movie. I like the arc of Tony Stark becoming a selfless man. He starts off very selfish, and he becomes a selfless man. He does the ultimate act of sacrificing his life for the good of mankind. And then Captain America's the opposite. He learns to take a step back and learns to value himself a bit more. I like those arcs. But then you have arcs like the arc with Hulk. And Hulk, that could have been a very beautiful arc as well. It's a man who's fighting between himself and a beast, and at the end he discovers how to mend them together, but they don't really do that. They kind of do it off screen, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey guys, I'm Professor Hulk, what's up bitches?" And yeah, this movie, the fact that it's one cemented final movie, makes it so that there was a plan all along, and it feels very well thought out. It's not something like a Star Wars where it's gonna keep going no matter what and it's gonna lose its value. I really hope that they self-contain these movies. I don't mind they're doing Fantastic Beasts, that's like in the past and it's different characters, so it's a completely different series to me. I don't really care. To be honest, I don't even view those as the same universe in my head. But yeah. Deathly Hallows, not the best Harry Potter movie, but definitely a beautiful finale. And I actually got a little choked up in this movie, and I'm not gonna lie. Guys, I look big and tough on the outside, I'm a little softy on the inside. Alright, check. Guys, this is the conclusion of the Garage Potter-thon. And what I'm doing here today is that I'm going to be ranking all of the Harry Potter movies that I've been watching for the past 2 weeks. I'm going to rank them all, okay? Now, I usually don't like ranking movies, and I like giving each movie their fair shot. So I'm not one of those YouTubers who will be like ranking movies all the time. However, I feel like since I did watch all of these Harry Potter movies and did a separate video for each of them, I feel like a ranking video would be a little more appropriate. Guys, this was quite an adventure. We've had our ups, we've had our downs. There were some movies I loved, some movies I didn't like as much. Let's see, let's rank them, let's just talk about them. This was going to be a quick recap video. If you guys don't agree with my opinion on this list, I suggest you look at my previous videos. Okay, if I say something you guys don't agree with, look at the video. I go a little more in depth on each movie. That said, let's go ahead. Let's rank these fuckers. Why did I call them little fuckers? I don't know. By the way, it's very late at night. I just threw on a flannel shirt and my Sex Pistols t-shirt, but I'm not wearing any pants. So, yeah. I don't know why I had to make a disclaimer for that. Let's go ahead. Number 8 here. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1. Guys, I know people who read the book think it's essential that the last book was separated into 2 parts. I understand that. It was a very meaty book. That said, all I do is consume movies. And as far as movie consumption goes, I don't think Harry Potter 7 Part 1 is a very good one. I feel like it's very derivative stylistically of a Twilight movie. I feel like not much happens. I feel like the characters don't go through an arc, which, again, I understand. It's because this is the setup. But a problem I have with the later Harry Potter movies is that Part 1 is all setup, and Part 2 is all payoff. And I feel like somewhere in there, someone on the internet should edit the movies so that it's like a 3-hour movie for Harry Potter 7 Part 1 and Part 2, where all the junk is edited out and maybe a few essential deleted scenes are integrated in that project. I want to see that fan project. Maybe good old Peter Harmey can do that. No, I'm kidding. Peter Harmey has got his own things going on. Yeah, I don't think this is too controversial. I've been talking to my friends who are more Potterheady than me, and they kind of agree 7 Part 1 is a bit of a snoozer. There's one thing I didn't mention in my review. I love the scene. There's one scene I love, and it's fucking Ron is all moody, and he ditches Harry and Hermione at some point. And then, like, 30 minutes go by in the film, and he comes back, and he's just like, "Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry about that." And then Hermione's fucking pissed at Ron, and Ron's just like, dude, you obviously fucked up. Stop doing that face. He's just like, get a load of this girl. I don't know. I thought that was funny. Let's go on to number 7 here. Number 7, I have Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I have a lot of friends who like this one. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those guys. I feel like this movie is so inconsequential. I feel like each Harry Potter movie, what I like about it is that it's a teen movie wrapped in this fantasy world. And I didn't think the fantasy was all that interesting. And I don't think the teen drama was all that interesting in this movie as well. I can sum up the movie right now for you. The Ministry of Magic says that Voldemort has not come back and everything is fine. And Harry Potter teaches a class. And at the end, shit hits the fan. They fight Voldemort. And the Ministry of Magic is like, huh. I guess they were a threat. Well, shit, we're gonna have a lot of figuring out to do in the next movie. That's Harry Potter 5 to me. It's not a horrible movie. Compared to most blockbuster movies, I'd say all of the Harry Potters are quite decent. But judging them based on one another, I think this is one of the weaker Harry Potter movies. Next, I have Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I really like the latter half of this movie. Once the Tom Riddle stuff starts, we start digging into that, I feel like the movie gets really interesting. Where the movie kind of lost me was the first act. I feel like it was just a bunch of set pieces, and there wasn't much room for a character. Which is a recurring theme with the movies I place lower on this list, is I feel like the character isn't as solid as in the films that I rank higher. But I feel like this was just set pieces. It moved very quickly. It was Ron and Harry at the herbology class, and then cut. Now we're in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, and there's the Pixies. Cut. And it was all these set pieces at the beginning, but they weren't really tying into one another. I feel like Chris Columbus might have gone a tad too Chris Columbus-y in this film. And had he done a third one, I feel like it would have been in a situation like Sam Raimi with Spider-Man 3, where it would have just been a dud. Luckily, Warner Bros. Was smart enough to have the foresight and be like, hey, I think the series works best when we rotate the directors around, and Alfonso Cuarón would direct the third one, which I feel like was a good move. There is a lot to like about Chamber of Secrets. I feel like it's a much darker film. It's a very dark kids movie, which I like, and they don't make enough of those these days. These kids movies that are just very dark. You have someone going around writing strange messages in blood in Hogwarts, and the whole Basilisk fight at the end where Harry puts a sword through the Basilisk. It's a very dark movie for a kids movie, and that's what I really liked, and I wish they leaned a bit more into it. That said, Chamber of Secrets, relatively good movie. I just ranked it a little lower here. Next, I have Harry Potter 7 Part 2, the Deathly Hallows 7 Part 2. I think Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is a satisfying conclusion. I would compare it to a movie like Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame works as a conclusion. Where I think it fails is that I feel like some of the stuff just don't work. And I feel like people are blinded by it because the conclusion itself is so good. In Avengers and Endgame, people remember Tony Stark dying and Captain America returning to the past, and that was such a satisfying conclusion that people forget there's a whole other movie. I feel like that's the same case with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I feel like the beginning of this movie has a lot of the same problems that I had with Harry Potter 7 Part 1. But once that conclusion kicks in, it's a very satisfying conclusion. And I'm not talking about the action. I wasn't that big into the action in this movie. I didn't think it was as exciting as some might think. To me, giant battles kind of feel weightless to me. A problem I did have with Avengers Endgame as well, where when I just see two tribes of people clashing into one another, that doesn't excite me. But a scene where Harry Potter is in a flying car with Ron, like we saw in Chamber of Secrets, that's a scene that excites me. But what works really works, and I'm really happy that J.K. Rowling decided not to make another Harry Potter book, and I'm really happy Warner Brothers just said, look, this was a great series, let's just end it here. I'm really happy for that, because this ending works even to this day. The scene where Harry is bringing his kids on the Hogwarts Express, and he's meeting with Ron, and Ron kind of gained weight, and so did Malfoy, and they're all older. It really struck a chord with me, especially watching all of these movies consecutively. It really does work dramatically, and you have that Hedwig's theme playing just like we heard back in the first movie. It was very well done. I feel like that's what worked. My gripes with it were more in the first half of the film. So we're at number 4. I got Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the one that started it all. I would say at this point in this list, the films get really good. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is a timeless movie. You watch it to this day, and it still holds up. I was actually quite surprised at how much it holds up. The one thing that doesn't really hold up, I'd say, is the children acting, which is understandable, they're children, but the special effects are friggin' amazing. I didn't remember the special effects being this good, but the 3-headed dog, excellent effect. Even the troll in the bathroom, excellent effect. Even when you compare it to some of the later Harry Potter movies, I feel like the effects in this one are the best. They don't have CGI birds, there's real owls in this. So many great memorable lines, great casting. You gotta remember that this is the first Harry Potter movie, and it's so iconic, the casting of people like Snape, who you can't picture anyone but Alan Rickman playing Severus Snape now. Just everyone was perfectly cast in this movie, and that John Williams score is so beautiful, and it really is a hero's journey. It's very structurally similar to Fellowship of the Ring or the original Star Wars, where you have this kid who's in this enclosed environment, whether it's the Shire, the Dursleys' house, or Tatooine, and he knows that there's something greater out there, and this mentor takes him on this journey where he becomes a child prodigy. Structurally, it's a narrative that's not new, it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it really is effective in my opinion, and you mix that with J.K. Rowling's fantasy world, her taste for mythology, it just works as a movie. I don't think this is a good Harry Potter movie, I think this is a good movie. Period. Number 3, we're getting in the top 3 here, folks. I don't know how controversial this would be, but number 3 to me was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, so the 6th film here. The first time I watched this movie, I actually didn't like it. But upon rewatching it, I actually enjoyed it a lot. And my brother actually told me that. He was like, Paul, you're gonna rewatch number 6 and you're gonna enjoy it a lot. And it's got me wondering, why didn't I like it the first time I watched it? And it could be because I'm more of a cinematic person. I like going to the cinema to watch movies. And that was the first Harry Potter movie I didn't see in cinemas. I watched it at home. And the quality of the video wasn't all that good. So it could be that. One of my favorite critics when it comes to film was Spill.com. For those of you who don't know Spill.com, it's one of the first internet film podcasts that came to be. Right now the channel no longer exists, Spill.com, but the people continued in Double Toasted. But sometimes when I watch a movie, I'll just listen to their some of their videos on YouTube from their archives, and I saw them review this movie, and they had a similar reaction to me where they didn't like it at first. And Martin Thomas, who in Spill.com was known as Leon, he said he read all the books and he said, this is one of the stronger Harry Potter movies, you just don't know it yet, and you need to go back and rewatch it in order to truly enjoy it.
Dang, all these matinees. I guess I should join in. Except I absolutely love this movie. It's almost my favorite. And just that, from a book that I thought was going to be hard to pull off. Yeah, it was, but it did much better. I think this is going to be one of those movies that you guys will come back to look. Right now you have expectations of how it should be structured. I think you'll come back and watch it later on video, and as it plays out the way it does, you'll like it better. Well, but for me, it's a full price.
Pussy. Maybe it will make. Maybe.
And I feel like that's what happened. Once you understand Severus Snape, what he does in the final Harry Potter movie, going back and watching Half-Blood Prince does take on a new meaning. And I really like the innuendos that are inserted into the film. Each film kind of alludes to a different period in growing up. And there's a lot of innuendos to drugs, alcohol, sex. The Harry Potter crew was at that age, and I feel like it's no surprise that in that film you have the kids experimenting with potions and starting to get little close and personal with ladies and stuff like that. I feel like J.K. Rowling knew exactly what she was doing when it came to that thing. I feel like, to me, what qualifies as a perfect Harry Potter movie is when the fantasy and the teen drama mesh together perfectly. And Half-Blood Prince does it perfectly. I wasn't expecting to like this movie upon rewatching it, but I truly did. And for those of you who didn't like it the first time around, I suggest you give it another shot. This movie really stands well on its own. The ending with Dumbledore, where you really see Dumbledore being weak. When you think of it, these blockbuster movies, when they have a mentor character, think of someone like an Obi-Wan in Star Wars. You never saw them hit the low that Dumbledore hits in this movie. We really see him at his lowest, and it was a really interesting touch to me. And that scene where Snape kills Dumbledore, spoiler alert, the scene where Snape kills Dumbledore takes on a whole new meaning to me once you know the motive behind Snape. When he's walking away from that incident, and it looks, upon first glance, it looks like he's just walking away like a badass and he doesn't give a fuck. But when you realize that he didn't want to do that, you rewatch that scene, and it takes on a whole new meaning, and that just goes to show how good of an actor Alan Rickman is. Guys, I highly recommend Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Moving on to number 2. Which one is it gonna be? Guys, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, number 2. This is usually people's number 1. I think it's a friggin' solid movie. I'm not suggesting otherwise. I just think there's one other Harry Potter movie out there that's a little better. But yeah, I really love The Prisoner of Azkaban. When it comes to John Williams' score, this is the last one John Williams would work on. But this is his magnum opus. The flute sounds, the doo 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 doo. The time travel plot was really interesting, and it's one of the few movies to me, blockbuster movies that is, where the time traveling element actually doesn't feel hammy or like a shoe-in. It really works in this story. The relationship Harry has with Lupin is very interesting. It's very touching. The emotion in this is very touching. Alfonso Cuarón really brings something new to the table in this movie, and especially when you watch 1, 2, and then 3, you really get to see the change in director, and that's really something that's interesting to me. One thing I didn't mention in my review that I forgot to, so I'll bring it up here. This is really non-pertinent, but so Warwick Davis plays Professor, I forget his name, Flippin or whatever. I'm just gonna call Flitwick, something like that. But the way he looks in Chris Columbus's Harry Potter movies is much different from the way it looks in Chris Columbus's movies. I don't know why that change happened. I didn't even realize he played the same character. I just assumed that the old fart died and Warwick Davis was playing a new character. But apparently they're the same character, just with a different design. Which apparently Alfonso Cuarón's design is more accurate to J.K. Rowling's novels. So that's probably why they did the design change. Regardless, I just think it's something interesting. And it's something I wish more blockbuster movies did. It does happen from time to time with the Marvel movies. If you look at the design of Thanos in Guardians of the Galaxy when he first shows up, it's much different from when you see him in Avengers. But I kind of like seeing the little changes that directors bring to a franchise, and that was one that was interesting to me. Alright, number 1 here. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not. I fucking love this movie. I love the structure of this movie especially. It starts off, it looks like your average Harry Potter movie, where there's this Triwizard tournament, and Harry Potter's competing in it, and he doesn't want to. But then the movie comes to a screeching halt, and just becomes about these kids that are nervous about going to the ball. And guys, I remember I was in high school, and whenever there was a high school dance or something, the anxiety that would come with it, having to talk to girls, and like trying to get with girls, and you're not at that age yet where you're really interested in girls. You're just kind of doing it because you watch other people do it and you kind of want to fit in. and you're just like kind of awkward and dorky. I remember being that age. I was a pimply motherfucker, and for some reason when I was growing up and I was at that age, I was a small guy, but the only part of my body that grew were my nose and my hands. I had really large hands and really big nose. Fortunately enough, my whole body evened out and I'm a relatively normal person right now, I think. I hope. But yeah, I just love Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I think the teen romance is very interesting. I was really invested in the Triwizard Tournament. What I like the most about Goblet of Fire is that I separate the Harry Potter franchise into halves, where you have years 1 through 4, that's your first half, and then years 5 through 7, that's your second half. And Goblet of Fire acts like a bridge between those two halves. And I really feel like Goblet of Fire picks between the two styles, the two tones, and picks the best of both. It starts off like the awe-inspiring wonder of a Chris Columbus or an Alfonso Cuarón movie, but then later on in the movie it takes a serious turn, and it ends very dramatically. I really like Goblet of Fire. It's a very entertaining movie, and it's one of those movies I feel like I can pop on and watch at any time. I wish more blockbuster movies were like this. It's just a solid blockbuster movie where it's exciting, the dragon fight is exciting, the scene where they're underwater doing a race underwater, that was exciting, albeit pretty creepy. They had to kidnap Hermione and Ron and put them underwater and have them unconscious underwater. That's a little strange for an Olympic event, wouldn't you think? But yeah, that mixed in with the teen drama. I love the ballroom dance. I even love the subplot with Hagrid who's hitting on the tall chick. I like that shit. It's campy, it's cheesy. It's something you would see in a Sam Raimi movie, but I dig it. Guys, I dig Goblet of Fire. It's my favorite Harry Potter movie. What can I say? So there you have it. I will say something about the franchise as a whole. All of these movies to me are somewhat good, if not great. I feel like compared to most blockbuster movies coming out nowadays, I don't want to be one of those channels that rant, but it's been a while since I saw a really good blockbuster movie in theaters, which is why I wanted to revisit the Harry Potter movies and see, like, does this hold up? And it really does hold up. This is a timeless franchise, absolutely a timeless franchise in my opinion. Guys, it was a pleasure doing this Potter-thon with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm planning on doing another marathon in October, much like how I did with the Zombie-thon. It would be a similar themed but different marathon in October, so hopefully you guys stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'll see you guys around. We're back to normal garage movie reviews next week. I might take a one-day break, so next week is going to be one video instead of the usual 2.